Good evening. I call to order our Board of Commissioners regular scheduled June 6th board meeting. Tonight, I've asked that Commissioner Gardner lead us in the invocation and Captain Gathman of our police department to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Let's pray prayer, please. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed upon us, upon this community. We thank you for this beautiful day and for this opportunity for us together in service to our town and in your name. We ask that you guide our decisions and be with us in the difficult times as we go forward. We ask that you be with our world in these trying times that we navigate each day. Please guide us again in our decisions tonight, and these things we ask in your holy name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I ask that the Town Manager Mitchell review the meeting protocol for public participation as it relates to this meeting. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, board members. It's good to be with you tonight. Tonight's meeting is both in person and virtual. Tonight's meeting contains a public comment period and 7 scheduled public hearings. Due to the hybrid nature of the meeting, the public will be invited to comment both in person and virtually via the Zoom virtual meeting platform. When it is the appropriate time, Mayor Massengale will first call on those wishing to address the town board that are attending in person, followed by those wishing to address the town board via the Zoom platform. All attendees that have appeared in person to address the town board during the public comment period should provide your name and address on the registration sheet by the podium prior to the public comment period beginning. All attendees that have joined the meeting virtually have joined muted. If those joining virtually wish to address the town board during the public comment period, they will need to notify the town host that they wish to speak. For the public's benefit that may be joining the meeting via the Zoom platform this evening, please press the raise hand button in the Zoom application to notify the town host that you wish to address the board. Please press *9 to raise your hand if you are joining by telephone. After an individual has raised their hand, they will enter into a queue. When the time for public comment or a public hearing begins, Mayor Massengale will ask the town host to recognize individuals that have notified the town host that they wish to speak by calling out their name or the last 4 digits of their telephone number. Individuals will be unmuted one at a time and invited to address the town board. We ask all those wishing to address the town board to begin their comments by clearly stating their name and address for the public record. The public is asked to keep all comments to 3 minutes so that all that wish to speak can be heard in a timely manner. And this concludes the protocol for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes for the May 17th, 2022 regular scheduled town board meeting. Are any corrections or additions to the minutes, or do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 17th, 2022 Town of Commissioners meeting as presented and recommended.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
No further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the public comment period. At this time, the town clerk will first call on individuals that are in attendance and have registered to address the town board prior to the meeting. Following those who are in attendance, the IT director will call on individuals that have virtually raised their hand via the Zoom app or by telephone. The public comment period is a time for the public to address the town board about any matter that is not the subject of a scheduled public hearing. Those speaking are asked to begin by clearly stating your name and address for the public record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes in order that all who wish to speak may be heard in a timely manner. Rose, do you have anybody signed up?
Yes, we have one, Mr. Timothy Weiss.
Mr. Weiss, please come forward.
Thank you. Timothy Weiss, 2816 Meadow Bluffs Way, Fuquay-Varina, 27526. And so I wanted to ask, there's two things, and maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I was asked to come here and ask a question. There was a rumor that there would be approval that the tennis facility at Fuquay-Varina High School would be allowed to have public use. And if that's the case, we wanted to make sure that if it was granted, that there was a way for us to get access to it, because all the courts are locked up with a padlock. And we were wondering, as citizens, if it is allowed to be played on, how would we have access on a regular basis? So that's the one question I have. The second question I have has to do with the rumored resurfacing of Action Park for the tennis facility that's there, or the 4 courts that are there. And what I would like the leadership here in the town to think about is that when it's done and when it's constructed, if there is a way that we could build a very small bathroom in place of where that rotary plaque fountain is. And I think that was donated 1980, something like that. I can't remember, but there's a beautiful plaque that's there. In today's world, water fountains just aren't used anymore. And that space would be perfect for a very small his and her bathroom facility. And we could put the plaque on the outside of the wall to show that we still care. But we have such a group. I think we mentioned to you, some of the people are very old, some are elderly. ABC Television came out last week, I think it was, and did a thing on one of the participants in our tennis group who's 98 years old, and he's still playing tennis. He was on TV. It's phenomenal. So we have 80, 90-year-olds. I'm not that old, but I would really appreciate it too. And if there's a way that we could make that a public safety health issue, try to find some way that we could do it for minimal cost that would meet the codes necessary to have a small public bathroom there. So those are my two things, that's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. I will address those at the end. Thank you. Rose, do we have anybody else signed up?
That's it.
Scott, Mr. IT Director, do you have anybody that has signed up virtually?
No hands are raised. No.
Okay. The item that Mr. Weiss spoke about earlier, tennis, on our agenda tonight, item 8B is the approval for joint use agreements. We discussed at previous meetings that the town with the school board was negotiating, being able to have access. They have come to an agreement as a fair agreement from a cost standpoint for the town, for the citizens to pay. And so that should be, once assuming that gets approved tonight, which I would not see any issue for that being approved tonight, then that would be moved to the next steps of executing that agreement and moving forward on that. From the bathroom standpoint, we did discuss at previous board meetings our upcoming master facility plan for parks and rec facilities and the input period that's getting ready to start with that right there. And so that's why I encourage y'all, shared before, to stay involved with that, include input there. You've been heard here, but stay a part of that process. That's the process right there that has input. And as we all know, competing funding issues, but there's grants out there, and there's tennis foundations that have grants too. And so we'll have that process coming up. But thank you much for coming here tonight, this evening. There are no items, that concludes our public comment period. There are no items tabled from previous meetings for tonight's meeting. Next on our agenda will be public hearings. Public hearings are a time for the petitioner to present his or her request and for the public to give input and voice their favor or opposition to the request. If you wish to speak and are physically in attendance, please step forward to the podium one at a time. Provide your name and address on the registration log at the podium and clearly state your name and address for the public record. Following those speaking who are physically in attendance, the IT director will call on individuals that have virtually raised their hand via the Zoom app or by telephone. Those wishing to address the town board will be unmuted one at a time. Those speaking are asked to begin by saying your name and address for the public record. We ask all those addressing the town board to please limit your comments to 3 minutes in order that all who wish to speak may be heard in a timely manner. Our first public hearing, item 7A, fiscal year 2022 to 2023 operating budget and 5-year operating and capital plan. More information about this agenda item will be presented by Town Manager Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have a scheduled public hearing on the budget this evening, followed by a recommendation for the town board to consider taking action on the fiscal year 23 budget, as well as the 5-year capital and operating plan. I do have some general comments to make, as well as to run through a few brief slides. Previously at our budget workshop and at the May, I believe it was the first meeting in May, the budget was presented in great detail, over 100 slides for both general fund and enterprise fund. Good news is, we're not going to do that tonight. We've done that twice now. So I'm going to more or less provide a summary of a slide deck, as well as some general comments about the budget, and then turn it over to the mayor to open the public hearing, followed by any questions that the town board may have. So the purpose of this agenda item is to consider adoption of the fiscal year 2022-2023 operating budget ordinance, fee schedule, and 5-year operating and capital plan for the town of Fuquay-Varina. On April 12th, the governing board heard a presentation from me regarding the town's proposed fiscal year 23 operating budget. During this budget work session, I presented a balanced budget and 5-year operating and capital plan, and led a discussion concerning the impacts of growth on human capital needs, facilities, and the prioritization of infrastructure projects. During the May 2nd town board meeting, management, and it was Mark, our assistant town manager, formally provided an in-depth presentation of the town's proposed fiscal year 23 operating and 5-year capital plan. During this meeting, the town board stated that a public hearing would be scheduled for this evening, the town board meeting, and related fiscal year 23 operating and capital budgets. For consideration, along with this agenda abstract that I'm reviewing with you at this moment, was provided to you the fiscal year 23 proposed operating budget, which includes the budget message, the budget ordinance, the fee schedule, the line item budget by department and fund, and the proposed fiscal year 23 budget presentation as presented on May 2nd. Additionally provided were the 5-year operating and capital plans, which were also formally reviewed during the May 2nd town board meeting. I'm recommending that the town board conduct a public hearing, and if it is the pleasure of the board, adopt the fiscal year 23 operating budget to include the budget ordinance, the fee schedule, and the 5-year operating and capital plan as presented and recommended. The town board is required by statute to adopt a balanced budget by June 30th of 2022. The proposed fiscal year 23 general fund budget totals $51,359,268. The recommended budget proposes a property tax rate of 42.5 cents for every $100 in value. This includes a 3 cent property tax rate increase consistent with previously adopted 5-year plans to offset the expense related to the construction, debt service, personnel, and operating costs for a 4th fire station. The proposed budget also includes a change in solid waste fees from $14.25 per month to $20 per month to achieve cost recovery for sanitation, recycling, and debris collection services, the addition of new inspections contractor fee change to cover the cost of adding or changing permit contractors. This is $55 per permit per trade. Several adjustments intended to streamline the planning fee schedule, and new sign fees are increased to cover cost escalation of sign materials. Parks and Recreation proposed increasing some facility user, program, and youth athletic fees to cover cost increases associated with delivery of these programs. And the Arts Center proposes restructuring some of its fees to better reflect how the facility and the theater are rented. The full fee schedule was provided with much greater detail in your agenda materials. The utility fee schedule proposes several changes, including a 9.9% increase in water and sewer base and volumetric rates, consistent with the rate model study that was completed in fiscal year 22, to phase in the additional revenue needed to cover the cost of water supply, wastewater treatment, and debt service associated with major public utility infrastructure investments within the 5-year plan. Additionally, increases in water and sewer tap and irrigation water service fees are proposed to cover meter installation costs. While no system development fee change is included in the FY 23 recommended fee schedule for tonight, the proposed budget does reflect anticipated revenues generated by the adoption of the water system development fee increase to $3,030 as identified by the recently completed system development fee study, which will support the expansion of water and wastewater infrastructure. Wildan Financial Services recently conducted this water and wastewater system development study for the town pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 162A, Article 8. Their report summarizes the analysis for the review and is made available to the public, and it will remain available for 45 days in total, ending on June 25th of this year, to allow the public an opportunity to review and submit written comments, which will be considered by the preparer of the analysis for possible modifications or revisions. A public hearing is scheduled for July 11th of this year at our July 11th board meeting. At that time, the board will be asked to consider adoption of the water and wastewater system development fee analysis. If the analysis is adopted, the board will be asked to consider amending the fiscal year 23 fee schedule effective July 11th to reflect the revised water and wastewater system development fees. The 5-year operating and capital plan is balanced. The 5-year plan identifies the need for a 2.5-cent property tax rate increase in fiscal year 24 to offset the expense related to the construction, personnel, and operations associated with the Community Center North facility. While lower than advertised in advance of the bond referendum, the current revenue outlook contemplates a portion of the debt service and operations of this facility being covered with tax-based growth subject to favorable construction bids. The plan includes the addition of personnel, capital equipment, and capital projects to match the pace of growth and is consistent with the direction set by the town board at our annual strategic planning retreat and the town's 21 to 25 strategic plan. The 5-year plan also takes into consideration recommendations from various town master plans and studies. Additionally, the 5-year plan anticipates the need for water and sewer volumetric rate increases every year to offset the anticipated supplier increases and to cover the debt service required for additional water capacity for system users consistent with the utility rate study. No additional system development fee increases are assumed beyond the water system development fee that I previously just reviewed with you. So I'm going to review some of these slides for a moment, and then, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you to open the public hearing.
Thank you.
So just some points of clarification, some changes to the 23 recommended budget since its presentation to the town board on May 2nd. Primarily, the salary and benefit costs were moved to departments. So previously, these costs sort of rested in one central services line item, and we have since dispersed those to individual departments. And we have been able to incorporate the funding for the implementation of the pay and classification recommendations as were discussed with the town board at our last meeting, and with the change requested of the town board to get us closer, or to get us at market average rather than below market average. There is no change to the total budget. The general fund remains at $51,359,000, and the utility operating fund remains at $17.6 million. Just a little bit of background on general fund balance. We use this as one metric to determine how to prepare a proposed and recommended budget to the board. And as you can see, our fund balance has fluctuated over the years, but the trend line shows it going in a upward direction. This will change over the next 5 years as we are planning to draw some of this fund balance down for specific capital improvements over the next 5 years. A breakdown of revenues, so you can get a general picture of the percent of revenues, what makes up the percentage of revenues for our total revenue picture. In the general fund, 47% comes from ad valorem taxes, 20% from sales tax, 9% from permits and fees, and another 9% from sales and services, and then smaller percentages as shown on the pie chart here. 10-year property tax rate history, you can see in 23 we are proposing to go up to 42.5 cents from the current 39.5 cents we're presently at. That's the 3 cents associated and tied to fire station number 4. And you can see those years that are marked with asterisks. Those are the years in the past that we've that we've previously experienced property reevaluation. And so that'll be coming up in a couple of years again for our consideration. Our 10-year property value history, this is a good metric, a good sign. Our property values are continuing to trend in an upward direction, and a pretty big jump from 2020 to 2021, close to $5 billion in property tax value. As a depiction of general fund expenses throughout the various departments, you can see the larger departments of police and fire make up the majority of our expenses, as well as parks, recreation, cultural resources at 9%, so 17% for police, 15% for fire, parks and recreation at 9%. Central services is where we have some of the expenses like insurance, property insurance, and workers' compensation insurance that inflate that percentage. And then you can see some of our public works departments combined generate a greater percentage of the department expenses. As a breakdown of the $100 for every $100 that a citizen pays in property taxes, this is how it breaks down. $31 goes towards public safety, $16 towards public works, $14 towards internal services, $11 towards arts and recreation. Development services is $10, $8 towards debt service, general fund debt service, $4 towards the is related to the appropriation of fund balance for one-time specific capital expenses or equipment, $3 related to general government, $2 is related to transfer to capital projects, and then $1 of every $100 goes towards economic and community development. A larger breakdown of general fund expenditures as proposed over the next 5 years, $79 million in fiscal year 23. Why is this not the same $50+ million I mentioned? 28.5 of that is loans and bonds that we are incorporating into this number that aren't incorporated into the other number I previously mentioned to you. So you can see we're bringing in $28.5 million of revenue, loans, and bonds in fiscal year 23, and we're proposing an additional $6 million in 25, $8.8 million in 26, and $8.7 million for capital projects that are planned over that five-year metric. You can also see how ad valorem taxes are proposed to grow with property values and revenue generated by proposed tax rates. The 3 cents related to Fire Station Number 4, the 2.5 cents related to the Community Center North, and we are beginning to reflect and show revenue generated in years 24, 5, 6, and 7 related to a large commercial retail project, Gold Leaf Crossing, that we expect will begin to come online and phase into development. As far as expenditures, we break them down by department and by year over the course of the 5 years. The big line to look at here is the very bottom line. You see zeros across the board. That indicates that our budget is balanced, revenues balanced to expenditures. Here you can see how we appropriate or propose to appropriate funds in the individual departments for operating purposes, and then we break out separately existing debt, new debt. So you can see in fiscal year 24 and 25 and 26 and beyond, we're beginning to see pretty elevated numbers of annual new debt expenses. They're related to Fire Station Number 4. They're related to the Community Center North. They're related to $20+ million of transportation projects that we have planned for the future. All of that's got to be paid back. We're borrowing funds for that. That's all got to be paid back. Debt service. This 5-year plan reflects that. Transfers to other funds. This $295,000 reflects a transfer to the debt service fund for revenues received by the license tag fees that we generate annually. And then you can see capital projects, bond at capital projects, appropriation to fund balance, and appropriation to fund balance for inspection purposes. General statutes state that the revenue that we generate for inspections can only be spent on inspections. So there are some years that we will have surpluses that we will put away for future personnel and capital expenses related to that service. Here again, a balanced budget over 5 years. Enterprise fund, these are our utilities. Here shows the breakdown of revenue over the 5 years for water sales, rate increases related to water sales, same thing with sewer sales, sewer increases, tap fees, miscellaneous revenue. This all comes into a combined in fiscal year 23, 17.6 million, and you can see this grows as well over the course of the 5 years. Why does it grow? Because again, we're taking on some very hefty infrastructure debt service over the next 5 years, particularly related to water capacity and sewer treatment capacity. Here, the big picture, the big takeaway, every year, balanced budget, revenues, balance to expenditures. And again, this is at sort of the 50,000-foot explanation. We have previously gone over the greater detail in 2 previous public meetings. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. If there are none, either before or after, or before the public hearing, I'm happy to answer any after the public hearing. My recommendation to the town board is to conduct a public hearing, followed by a motion to adopt the fiscal year 23 operating budget, to include the budget ordinance, the fee schedule, and the 5-year operating and capital plan as presented and recommended. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that report, Manager. A lot of time has been spent providing this budget. Do any board members have any questions before we open the public hearing?
I just had one question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we had one open item, the healthcare, we were still negotiating with that. Was that resolved?
It was. We
Okay.
are, for our health insurance, we are switching providers this year. We had previously been with Aetna for about 3 years. We're now moving to Cigna. We were able to get the same exact plan for our employees at a much reduced cost. We were looking at about a 18 to 20% increase in insurance premiums by sticking with our current provider. We're looking at about a 5% increase total by moving to Cigna.
Very good,
And our employees will get the exact same plan.
Same benefits. That's
Same
great.
benefits.
very good.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any further questions from board members?
I just
before
have a
public hearing?
question.
Commissioner Harris?
In regards to the proposed personnel additions, is there any calculation in regards to the costs for housing these employees and equipping them with what they need?
Yes, sir. So all of the figures in the budget incorporate both of those, the equipment, the technology, everything that an employee needs to be able to do their job is factored into the budget. We are also including in the budget funds to make accommodations for the different facilities that we may be putting these new employees in, both here at Town Hall, the Public Service Center, our Terrible Creek wastewater treatment plant, any of the Parks and Recreation, Art Center, any of the facilities where new employees would be located. If we don't already have an existing office space, we're making accommodations within our budget to create office space for them.
Is that included in each departmental budget, or is that one line item, one?
It is typically included in each departmental budget under new personnel. That way, if the town board were to not agree with the new personnel, it would just come out of that one line item, and we wouldn't have to go fish for it in various line items.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Questions? Thank you, board members. The hearing is now open. Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in favor of the fiscal year 2022-2023 operating budget and 5-year operating capital plan? Welcome.
Good evening, board members. My name is Paul Kane. I'm the CEO for the Home Builders Association for Raleigh and Wake County. Address is 5580 Centerview Drive in Raleigh. As part of the presentation tonight on your budget, there was this discussion about the water system development fee. It's not, the fee schedule isn't in the budget, but the anticipated revenues are, so it kind of sounds like the fee is going to be adjusted. I think it's worth noting that the water system development fee increase is in excess of a 50% increase, and that is really significant. That's over $1,000 per home. Of course, if those fees are imposed on the builder, those just get passed through to your consumer in the price of the house itself. And $1,000 is no small matter. The National Association of Home Builders developed a report showing what a $1,000 increase can do in terms of making it affordable to that potential consumer. In other words, if you add $1,000 to the price of the house, they can no longer qualify for that loan because their qualifications only go so high. And they did that report down to metro levels. And for Wake County, if you add $1,000 to the price of a home, 724 families can no longer afford that home. So I think that that's something that needs to be taken into consideration by this commission. It is, again, that is such an enormous difference in over 50%. I'd recommend that the commission consider reevaluating that number, maybe phasing it in, something other than the enormous leap we're looking at here in this instance, not only for the good of the industry, but for the good of your citizens who are going to be buying these homes. I think a lot of times there's perception that new homes are only purchased by the people moving here, and that's simply not the case. You've got a lot of citizens that may have lived here for generations that they just had another kid and they need that new home, or maybe they're stepping down because in home size because they're retiring. These are the people that will be impacted by that $1,000. I know that trying to find money to pay for these systems is a complex one, but it does seem that in this instance it is being disproportionately put on the water system development fee that is in the anticipated revenue of this budget. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. You probably meant to speak on the speak in opposition part, but that's okay. I understand the comments. Does anyone attending else in person wish to speak in favor of the operating budget and 5-year capital plan? Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in opposition to the 22 to 23 fiscal year operating budget and 5-year operating and capital plan? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Timothy Weiss, 2816 Meadow Bluffs Way, Fuquay-Varina. Hey, I had a question. I just saw this for the very first time, and the thing that popped into my mind was the debt service percent. And I was just wondering what the current, based on what we're seeing interest rates happening now, does this take into consideration the huge rise in the Fed rates? Or is this interest rate to service the debt, is this based on prior to what happened with the Fed rates?
We'll address question. This is time for comments. We'll have discussion and the questions and address some of those items then.
Okay, thanks.
Does anyone else attending in person wish to speak in opposition to 22 to 23 operating budget and 5-year operating capital plan? Scott, does anyone attending virtually wish to speak in favor of the fiscal 22-23 budget?
There are no hands raised.
Scott, does anyone attending virtually wish to speak in opposition?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, the hearing is now closed. Mr. Manager, a couple questions that have been brought up in the public hearing and other board member comments. Water and sewer fee schedule. I know that our costs here in the town have risen just like other surrounding areas. How do, you mentioned water and sewer projects that are increasing and new projects that are coming online. How are those projects paid for? How did you come to your conclusion on your recommendations?
So they're going to need to be paid for. We're going to, unless the town is fortunate to receive appropriations or grant funding for those projects, they're going to be paid for through borrowed funds. Typically, we would, on large capital projects like water and sewer projects, we would issue bonds so that we could take advantage of better market interest rates. However, sometimes we are fortunate enough to receive state revolving fund loans, which come at really low interest rates. We were awarded for our water capacity project. I think it was $20 or $30 million in low interest rate loans at 1.2% interest, which is phenomenal. We'd like to get more of those funds if we can towards these projects, but we're staring down the barrel of close to $250 million in water and sewer infrastructure expenses over the next 10 years. And they got to be paid for somehow. We're going to borrow the funds. The majority of those funds will likely have to be borrowed, and that debt service is going to have to be paid for. We've hired a rate analysis company to evaluate both user rates and development fee rates. The development fee rate is evaluated per North Carolina general statute. The user fee rate is evaluated because we know we have a debt service that we're going to be facing, a substantial and large debt service. What this town board gave direction on is that you would like to see a recommendation that doesn't disproportionately apply fees to one group over the other, but tries to proportionally spread those fees out. So we are proposing this year and every year for at least the next 5 years, water and sewer rate increases on our customers, 9.9% water and 9.9% sewer in fiscal year 23. That's on the base rate and the volumetric rate. And then revenue to be generated through development fees, system development fees, and all of those revenues combined will help towards not only operating, but primarily related to system development fees, the debt service associated with these investments. One of the comments that was made is making sure that decisions are made that or keeping in mind your decisions that are good for the industry. Us not being able to expand our capacity for water and us not being able to expand our capacity for sewer is not good for the building industry. If we do not do that and invest in these big projects now, there will not be an opportunity for the building industry here in Fuquay-Varina. So if we want to do what's good for the building industry, we got to make these big investments, and unfortunately, we got to pay for those investments, and that's going to come through various revenues being generated through various fees.
So long story short, you built a budget based on some of it being paid by a variety of different ways, users, grants, fees collected in different areas. How does the water fee change from $2,000 to $3,000 relate to surrounding areas in the county?
Well, of course, everyone is going through their budget process right now, and so we're waiting to see the final numbers, but we do know that numerous of our peers already charge higher fees for water and sewer system development fees and are proposing larger increases than we are. Our $1,000 increase, as far as I understand from having talked with our peers, or many of our peers, especially in southern Wake County, that are feeling the pressure of growth right now, is quite modest compared to what our peers are looking at.
Other gentleman asked about debt service. I know that we have a AAA bond rating, and that has kept us on very low financing for a variety of our projects here in our community. You mentioned earlier some of our low money that we've been able to borrow in the 1% that have not been, that are typically subsidized by state government, and that's why they're so low. They don't necessarily, some of them are variable rate loans and some of them are fixed rate loans out there. What do you foresee with this recently Fed raising prime interest rate, which directly and directly affects mortgages at the same time? Everybody's credit card rates go up, a lot of the variable rate APRs will rise. How have you accounted for that or projected that in the budget?
So the town has, and we have had for the better part of 2 decades, financial advisors that give us guidance on the planning process for future debt service, new debt service. As a matter of fact, the town board spent a considerable amount of time at your annual retreat with our financial advisors, speaking about interest rates and borrowing costs. These are all factored into our plans for servicing debt. And so there is a escalation factor built into interest rates. Now, obviously, we won't know exactly what it is until we go and sell the bonds in the marketplace, right? Until we go out there and test the market and sell it. But our financial advisors do take into consideration the movement by the feds and the movement in the marketplace, and try to make some reasonable assumptions with interest rate movements. The good news, as you mentioned, Mayor, is we are a AAA bond rated community, and we do have some of the highest bond ratings in the state. And so that does typically, in the marketplace, yield better interest rates for us when we do sell bonds. But we are factoring into our budget models, into our 5-year plan, rising cost of interest rates,
Okay.
or rising effective interest rates.
The takeaways I have from your budget is planning for the future is a message that this board, I can call on other board members to make comments in just a moment, but was planning for the future, and we had a big retreat that we discussed a lot of things. I know this board has spent probably over 100 hours in discussions with the budget, what they first saw coming between the retreat, workshops, public input meetings, and in this boardroom also at the same time. You mentioned we spoke about water and sewer infrastructure investments, planning for the future and trying to stay competitive with that at the same time. We need houses to be built in our community, need houses to keep coming in our community to help us pay for some of these projects. You've heard me often talk about the amount of miles that developers have built on roads and water and sewer in our community. And many of those roads of infrastructure investments would never be built if they had not had invested in that. And so that does not go unnoticed and very much appreciated. It's amazing you've heard me speak at the last board meeting when we did our pay implementation study, compensation study, and the high quality of employees that we have here, but also the employers that are competing for these high quality employees out here. And you citizens are our customers, and you're the ones that we have to look after and take care of. Road infrastructure projects, this year's been a year of planning. Next year's a year of construction of many of these.
That's right.
These projects right here. A variety of new roads, a variety of road improvements, and a variety of expansions of existing roads and infrastructure projects. And that's huge planning, again, message
I believe
planning
it's 8 projects that are in the hopper.
that this board has approved. And a lot of that has gotten money through grants.
That's
And
correct.
we got a lot of money on water and sewer grants also, and that's going to help out a lot for that and help keep the cost low. The tax increase, nobody likes fees raising up. Nobody likes tax increases going,
right.
but the tax increase has been advertised for and been in the 5-year plan for a very, very long time. That's expected to come online once this fire station was built. So I don't believe that's something new to anybody out there. They've been
No, that's been in the 5-year plan for
in regards
5
to
years.
that, which impacts affordability at the same time. Every cost does, and we have to be well aware of that. Any comments from board members? Commissioner Gardner? Some comments in regards to the budget?
Well, tonight is just the end of this process. I'm really impressed with all of the staff hours, all of the education, all of the preparation that goes into this budget. And we, and for all intents and purposes, in the last few months have had basically the budget we're talking about tonight and have continued to vet it. So I'm impressed and proud of the work that's been done on it, and I think we're headed in the right direction.
Commissioner Harris, any comments?
Yeah, a couple of comments. I understand what is to be accomplished in the budget, and I know we're in the midst of a very economically volatile environment. I support the budget, but I must admit I do have some concerns, and my concern would be around the number of personnel that we're proposing to hire. Personnel is always a major expense when it comes to any organization. We're proposing an additional 37 positions. With the uncertainty of the economics, we're in a period of inflation. I'm just concerned that in the future, if there's a upset in the economy, how that's going to impact our staffing pattern and the level of services that we are proposing to provide through the budget. It does not mean that I'm not going to approve the budget, but I just want to make that statement, and I'm sure that management recognizes, even now with the proposed budget and the environment that we're in, what that means. One of the things that I do admire about the budget is the planning for the future, addressing the issues of growth, addressing the issues of needing expanded water capacity, and tying that to the projects that we have proposed in the future. I think the water system development fees, may be sort of sticky, but at the same time, I recognize that we need water capacity to continue to grow. And I think in that regards, I would support that as far as the effort and how it's proposed in the budget. Overall, Mr. Mayor, I like the budget. I think that staff has done the best that they could, given the environment that we're in, and I commend the staff for what you've done.
Thank you.
Speaking of that, Mr. Manager, Commissioner Harris brought up in regards to employees, this is a rolling hiring. You start the process, start interviewing, start hiring them. I'm assuming some of these will be hired pretty quickly. Some of them will take nearly the whole year to find the right person for that position. And so you'll keep a handle on economic conditions at the same time. If we see some of these positions are slowing up, then
That's
you'll
right.
make us aware and we can look to pull back on some of that at the same time.
Absolutely. As we go along in the year, and if the circumstances warrant a revisit, I would certainly bring that before the board.
Nobody likes layoffs, but I would not like to think that we're intending to hire somebody immediately laying them off, but at the same time, a position's not being filled, or if it came down to that, a department became too big and didn't need the personnel, then you'd look to reduce it.
And 1/3 or a little more than 1/3 of the total positions proposed are public safety positions. 9 affiliated with the fire station number 4, another 4, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, for law enforcement, and then, of course, all the rest of them are dispersed related to development pressures.
In the enterprise fund.
That's correct.
Enterprise fund will help pay for that.
Okay.
Crime doesn't go away when there's a recession. Crime probably goes up then, right?
There's
Might
always
need more
challenges,
police
that's right.
officers during that time period, more firefighters, people be stealing and burning down things. So, all right. Commissioner Haynes, any comments?
Pretty much what both Commissioner Gardner and Commissioner Harris have talked about. Definitely thank the staff, all of the staff, for all the work they did during this process. It's definitely good to see that we were able to put the employee compensation increases in this budget. Talking to many other municipalities across the state, many of them are having to do that maybe 1 to 2 years from now, even though they see that inflation, different things. So that's good that the town, that the town management was able to put that in, because talking to many of the other municipalities, many of them were putting that in their 2024 budgets and 2025 budgets. So for us to be able to put that in our incoming budget is a very good thing. Definitely, it's one of those things when you have growth, it's some things that you're never going to please everybody. But it's some stuff that we're going to have to do to make sure that we can accommodate everybody and continue to grow the town. So, it's one of those things where it gets tough at times, but, we have to make those tough decisions. So definitely, again, thank you. I definitely understand what you're saying with so many unknowns when it comes to the next few years with our economy, for United States in general. So, definitely thank you for even thinking about the future parts and where we can change it. And like you said, even with our compensations now, next year it's going to change. As soon as we see everybody else's budgets drop on their employee compensation, that makes us have to go back to the drawing board as well. So that's one of those things where, it's good that we're now doing that on a yearly basis instead of waiting multiple years to go back and look at those different compensations and different things. So I definitely applaud the staff for being able to put us on the right track when it comes to future growth and future growth in our just in our infrastructure as well. So definitely thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Haynes. Commissioner Watson, any comments?
Nothing that hasn't already been said. Thank you to staff. We've seen this a few times now. You've heard our requests. They're in here. And we appreciate the hard work that went into it. None of us want fee increases, tax increases, of course. We know it's necessary. But just know that a lot of thought and work went into this, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Watson.
Mr. Mayor, with us approving the fee schedule, I know we have later on down the line in our consent agenda, adjusting the, I guess, amendment for the fee schedule. Does that impact of us voting now on that?
No, it does not.
Okay,
So
just
that
making
item
sure.
on the consent agenda just goes ahead and advances the fee related to the rental of
Okay.
the Hilltop Needmore Clubhouse.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Start that before July 1 at that point then,
Correct. It would give us the ability to do that, yes, sir.
right?
Just one more thing to note, and that is in this wage study and compensation study that we just completed, or that is reflected in this budget, we learned that we are recruiting employees for public service or, public safety or whatever in the most competitive job market in the state of North Carolina. So that certainly has played a part in this, and we, in order to attract the caliber employees that we want and the staff that we want the best staff ever, and I think we have them, but we have to, if we want to keep doing that, we're going to have to stay competitive with our, how we can compensate them.
Yes, ma'am.
That's exactly right. Mayor Pro Tem Smith, any comments in regards to the?
Just, everybody's pretty well covered. Just one thing I wanted to kind of dovetail what I think the manager said. One of the things I hear when I'm out in the community a lot is, how is our infrastructure growing in relation to the growth that we're experiencing and the needs of our citizens? And in order for that infrastructure to grow, we do have to talk about things like tax increases to building new fire department, or rate increases, and even fee increases. And, as a citizen who lives here, none of us, I think everybody said that likes doing that and having to raise rates or taxes. But I think in being responsive to the needs of the public, making sure we have water, making sure we have sewer, because those things do get squeezed as we grow and we're having to plan for the future. The thing that excites me about what we've accomplished, the hard work with our staff and the people we've hired to give us advice, and the work that the mayor pointed out the board has done through all the various meetings we've been in, is to try to plan for the future and meet that need. Same thing happens with needing employees. Our citizens demand that we provide certain levels of service, and to do that, we have to hire people to provide those services. It is a nervous time, Commissioner. I agree with you 100%. And we've been here long enough to see when the economy does fall, that sometimes we have to reduce our services, and that is a tough time. But I don't think we can sit here and say, we're not going to try to meet those needs. And so I think basically we're just being responsible to what our citizens ask us to do. It does cost. But I think we're trying to set this town up for a track for the future that we'll have sufficient water, sufficient sewer. And as the mayor pointed out, we're already beginning to work on a lot of the traffic projects as well, trying to meet those infrastructure needs. And I think it's just going to cost us to do it. And it's tough decisions to make, but if we plan for the future, we have to make tough decisions. And so I applaud our staff for helping us make those tough decisions and coming up with a plan to meet those needs. I appreciate that, town manager and the rest of our staff.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion or questions by the board, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2022-2023 operating budget to include the budget ordinance, fee schedule, and 5-year operating and capital plan as presented and recommended by staff.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. A couple staff members, manager, that you mentioned was Finance Director Crabtree and Budget Analyst Lum, which I see you right there too. And thank you for your work on this. I know you spent a lot of time on the budget and management, along with 2 assistant managers, 3 of them, and I brought back information to all the departments and to you on what came out of the board retreat and what the board was looking to do in the community. And so thank you for your time and work on that too, specifically, along with all department heads. But I know y'all specifically have a lot involved with that too.
Thank you.
Same time.
You took the words out of my mouth. Appreciate you saying that.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, we have item 7B, public hearing, 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plan. Town of Fuquay-Varina, CTA 2022-03. More information about this agenda item will be presented by Planning Director Davison.
Thank you. Can I get the clicker?
Please.
So I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official records of the town. So the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan, adopted in 2017, is the current ordinance for future growth and development in Fuquay. It establishes a long-term vision for the community that extends over a planning horizon of 20 years. The land use plan is a living document meant to be revisited and amended as necessary as the community moves forward in growth. The land use plan is a policy document that provides guidance to the town in decisions for rezonings, describing the desired future land uses for all property within the town's planning areas. The land use plan and the future land use map included within it do not change the existing zoning or subdivision entitlements of a property. The updated 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plan, the 2040 LUP, proposed in this amendment builds upon the vision, guiding principles, and recommendations of the current plan and provides more focus and clarity regarding the community's expectations for the character, quality, and mix of development in the town's planning jurisdiction. The 2040 LUP also provides tools to achieve a more balanced tax base and maintain and enhance the high quality of life standards that the community expects. Some of the overarching concepts of the 2040 LUP are to balance the ratio of residential to non-residential land uses. The town is seeking to increase the percentage of non-residential uses with a target of a 60-40 balance of residential to non-residential uses in the planning area. To create new opportunities for non-residential uses that are needed in growing areas along major transportation corridors. To provide quality housing choices, the plan seeks to create character areas with a wide range of housing options and locate the different character areas to utilize the town's existing infrastructure investments. To include the recently completed Judd Parkway, the placement of various character areas also seeks to take advantage of existing features such as access to environmental features and rural vistas, while enhancing and filling in the gaps between existing neighborhoods. The character areas balance the town's housing portfolio and also create areas that support multi-generational neighborhoods where residents can find homes that suit their lifestyles and life stages over time without having to leave the neighborhood. This variation within a neighborhood, whether through lot sizes or housing types, also supports the different needs of multiple generations of one family living in the same neighborhood. Strengthening the expectations for mixed-use activity centers that integrate the non-residential uses that provide goods, services, and jobs in close proximity to housing creates more options for residents to access these amenities with less time and money spent on vehicle travel for necessities. Some of the key plan updates. In Chapter 1, we have an introduction. There's background information, including demographic data, has been updated, and a high-level market forecast has been provided. In Chapter 2, our growth framework, the growth framework is based on the expected character of different areas throughout town. Instead of focusing on use and intensity only, the guiding principles of the 2035 plan have been retained and expanded upon to convey the community's vision for its future. Topics include the following: land use and transportation, community facilities and services, home choices, natural environments, parks and recreation, economic vitality, community design and performance, and communication. Chapter 3 is one we're really excited about, the character typologies. The heart of this plan is the future land use map and the supporting character area descriptions. Character area typologies provide greater detail on how different areas of the community should be developed in terms of their look, feel, and functionality. Illustrations and example site layouts are included to further explain the expectations for development. Character areas include descriptions of the following elements and their relevant characteristics: street and block patterns, how developments are connected internally to each other with streets, sidewalks, and greenways, open spaces and natural resources, the types and locations of open spaces appropriate for each character area and how they relate to the built environment, lot size and building placement, building orientation and placement in relation to streets, property lines, and other buildings, building types and massings, identifies the general scale of buildings as well as the types of building forms that are appropriate in each area. Transportation considerations identifies areas where multimodal transportation options are most critical, how property should connect to or expand the road network, as well as public realm elements such as seating and bike racks. The categories of character areas have corresponding elements from the previous 2035 land use plan. Some areas have been combined, consolidated, or modified. All areas have been described in greater detail as follows. Open space is still open space, and open space and rural residential remain mostly unchanged. Rural residential is still rural residential. Large lot residential and small lot residential are now both single-family neighborhood. New developments will need to provide an integrated mix of lot sizes and a comprehensive and connected network of open space throughout the neighborhoods. Mixed-density residential is now mixed residential neighborhood. Mixed residential neighborhood in new developments will provide a central neighborhood park and smaller developed open spaces throughout the neighborhood, with the smallest lot sizes around the center and the largest single-family lots at the perimeter of the neighborhood. Oh, did I get this backwards? Sorry, multifamily neighborhood. Small-scale developments only. Larger townhomes and apartment developments must be integrated as a portion of a mixed residential neighborhood or one of the mixed-use center designations. Town center neighborhoods remains mostly unchanged, as does neighborhood commercial. The town center neighborhood has been expanded to limited locations outside the Judd Parkway Loop where this traditional neighborhood design is appropriate. And neighborhood commercial has been supplemented to encourage low-impact development practices such as sustainable stormwater designs. Suburban commercial is the new name for small-scale commercial. Oops. And civic institutional stays civic and institutional. In suburban commercial, new developments will need to create a center outdoor corridor such as a main street, park, square, or plaza. The civic and institutional, again, is largely unchanged. Suburban office is still suburban office. Light industrial and heavy industrial are now both industrial, and they remain mostly unchanged. And suburban office is still suburban office as well, and remains unchanged. So, some of the exciting changes are to our form-based codes, the next being the Neighborhood Activity Center. Residential uses are secondary to commercial and common green spaces. New developments will need to create a center corridor such as a main street, park, square, or plaza. Non-residential uses should be 5,000 to 100,000 square feet of building area over approximately 5 to 15 acres. And development will have a pedestrian-oriented design with buildings close to the street where applicable. Our Community Activity Center, residential uses are secondary to commercial and common green spaces. New developments will need to create a central corridor such as a main street, park, square, or plaza. Non-residential uses should be 100,000 to 250,000 square feet of building area over approximately 15 to 45 acres, and buildings should be constructed with a pedestrian-oriented design to the internal streets. In our Regional Employment Center, residential uses are secondary to non-residential uses and common green spaces. New developments will need to create a center corridor such as a main street, park, square, plaza. Non-residential uses at the core are employment uses such as office or industrial. Anchors could include corporate headquarters, higher education facilities, hotels, medical research facilities, or advanced manufacturing uses accommodating building area of 500,000 square feet or more, covering at least 45 acres. Buildings should be constructed with a pedestrian-oriented design to the internal streets. Other plan enhancement include site plan concepts, illustrate key components and desired arrangements of buildings, street, and open spaces in the single-family neighborhood, mixed residential neighborhood, neighborhood activity center, community activity center, and regional employment center character areas. We now also have a character area typology crosswalk. This indicates appropriate zoning districts to implement for each character area. This tool is to be used in rezoning decisions. We also have building typology crosswalks. These identify and illustrate the types of buildings, for example, single-family detached, duplex, neighborhood commercial, that are appropriate in each character area. And we have one of these crosswalks for both the residential and commercial buildings. Chapter 4 includes supporting infrastructure, including a priority investment area map and policies. This prioritizes location of future town infrastructure investments to promote strategic investments by the town through enhanced economies of scale and a focus on supporting economic development goals. Development can occur through all areas of town's municipal and extraterritorial jurisdiction at any time. However, the town's contribution to extending and improving infrastructure will be focused in higher priority investment tiers. Chapter 5 explores townwide initiatives, development compatibility, and site transitions. Focus on site designs that create effective transitions between different uses, creating connections while minimizing the impacts of more intense uses on nearby less intense uses through building relationships and site design features. Comprehensive, connected, and continuous open space. Focus on a comprehensive approach to open space through both preservation and development with open space forms curated to support the sense of place created in each character area. A draft of the updated 2040 land use plan and list of character area typologies, as well as the full draft document presented at the April 18, 2022 Planning Board meeting, have been posted on the town's outreach platform, Let's Talk FV, for public viewing and feedback. Concurrently, information was posted on the town's social media sites and website, making information available to the public. Over 1,800 individuals have viewed the project on Let's Talk FV website. Over 800 individuals have downloaded at least one of the draft documents, and nearly 40 members of the public have provided written comments regarding the draft plan. All comments received on or before May 20th, 22 have been included in the attachments for the board's consideration. In addition to posting on the town's social media site, website, and Let's Talk FV platform, town staff have met with various home builders, developers, and stakeholders that include the Wake County Home Builders Association and Triangle Community Coalition to review and discuss the proposed 2040 land use plan. Management and staff recommend approval of the proposed amendment to the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan. The proposed 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plan is reasonable and in the public's best interest as it updates the land use plan and further extends a long-term vision for the community. At the May 16, 2022 regular meeting, the Planning Board unanimously voted to recommend approval. This item was initially presented to the Planning Board at their regular meeting on April 18, 2022. The public hearing was continued to the May 16, 2022 meeting at the request of staff to allow more time to gather public feedback. Changes were made to the plan document through the process to incorporate feedback, correct minor errors, and coordinate with other town-approved plans. The changes, which included revisions to the future land use map and refinement of the character areas, were presented to the Planning Board at the May 16, 2022 meeting. Additional updates to the priority investment areas map and the summary of impacts to town infrastructure associated with the future land use map were received from the consultant after the Planning Board meeting. The recommendation tonight is to approve CTA 2022-03, an amendment to the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan, renamed the 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plan, as presented and recommended by town management and staff, as it improves upon the land use plan and is reasonable and in the best interest of the public for the reasons identified by management and staff. I am available to answer any questions, and our consultant is on hand as well tonight.
Thank you, Director Davison. Mr. Newcastle, you're here in the audience. I saw you sitting back there, and thank you, Director Davison, for recognizing Matt, who has been helping out a lot with the land use plan. Came up here tonight, and you came to our retreat also to talk a lot about different areas and ideas of development and visions of community and other different developments that have happened around Wake County and around the state and the whole area to give some ideas. So thank you for being here tonight. We shall call upon you if needed. Board members have any questions before I open the public hearing? Okay. Public hearing is now open. Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in favor of the 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plan? Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in opposition to the 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plan? Come forward. Come forward. Good evening.
My name is Elena Money Garman. I live at 2001 Red Sage Court in Apex, North Carolina, 27502. Mayor Massengill, members of the commission, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm the founder and CEO of Garman Homes. We're a local home building company, and we've been in business since 2007. My company builds houses for first-time home buyers up to the midpoint or average price point for new construction homes. We strive to build great-looking, attainable homes. Garman Homes is a company that believes very strongly in giving back to our industry and our local communities. As such, I'm the second vice president of the Home Builders Association, meaning I'll serve as president in 2024. I've built 2 homes for Operation Coming Home, both to honor fallen soldiers, and more than 10 Habitat for Humanity Blitz homes. Currently, my company builds around 200 homes a year, with plans to double over the next 18 months. To date, we've built 93 homes in Fuquay-Varina, 21 homes in Highgrove, and 72 homes in Sunset Bluffs, with half of those being the entry price point for the community. A modest amount, but one we're proud of. My main reason for speaking tonight is to let you know of my overarching concerns regarding the focus of the town of Fuquay-Varina seems to have as it relates to future growth. Did you know that when you search the word afford, affordable, or affordability in the LUP, it only comes up 7 times in 143 pages? Missing middle comes up 5 times. Attainable doesn't come up at all. But if you search the word garage, it comes up 23 times, or open space, it comes up 128 times. I bring this up to help demonstrate the concern I have. This document, while it contains many great ideas and visions for Fuquay-Varina, it falls short of addressing the importance and focus that must be placed on attainable workforce housing. Some call this the missing middle or affordable housing, but it's important to distinguish I'm not talking about subsidized affordable housing. I'm talking about attainable housing at a multitude of price points and housing types. I do understand that there are elements in this document that require a mix of housing types that I'm sure many believe will achieve the necessary mix of housing price points. Unfortunately, it's my belief that this will not work out as imagined due to the many additional requirements for open space, common areas, alley-loaded garages, and less available land for development, all of which drive up the cost of individual homes and drive out housing options for the missing middle, which includes some of our most valuable hometown heroes, including teachers, police officers, firefighters, healthcare workers, just to name a few. A document such as this LUP draft that fails to focus on attainable housing will result in regulations and ordinances that also fail to have this focus, and that will be to your detriment. Additionally, it's worth noting that as family formations continue to change for residents of Fuquay-Varina, it's possible that without ample options for downsizing or right-sizing their home through more dense options, these residents will be priced out of living in a town they love, and a town that we as home builders have loved building in. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone else attending in person wish to speak in opposition to the 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plan? Scott, does anyone attending virtually wish to speak in favor of the 2040 Community Vision Land Use Plan?
No, sir. No hands are raised.
Does anyone attending virtually wish to speak in opposition to the 2040 Community Land Use Plan?
No, sir. No hands are raised.
Okay, the hearing is now closed. Any discussion by board members? Any questions of board members? I think that we want to see a diverse housing stock in Fuquay-Varina, a variety of different types of houses. I want our, as you said, attainable. I like that word right there. Attainable housing, workforce housing we often use to describe that, and want to see that in our community. I think that the plan has a lot of good things in the plan and will help to be able to get a direction. A lot of thought and input has been given into this plan, and a lot of looking at surrounding communities, what they've done, and some communities that have done stuff that the board and staff liked for Fuquay-Varina, and some communities did, and we try to leave out those pieces that we didn't like and put in there what we do like. But I do believe the amendments of this plan will continue to be a living document that we will be changing at the same time, just as the last one had amendments throughout the process of it. And this is an amendment to that land use plan. The previous one was the full overwrite that was written about 5 years ago. And so I do believe that this has a lot of good things in it, and this document can do a lot of good things in the community. Same time, we gotta be careful not to price out our workforce housing, and that's very important. I do believe we will keep an eye on that with projects. I do believe the market will help dictate and demand with that too, along with the builders and developers. The market will help show that direction, and if the intention is not to stop people from moving to Fuquay-Varina, we want people moving to Fuquay-Varina right there. And so I do think that it is important points that you bring up, but I think we can handle some of those items too. Any other comments or discussion by board members?
I guess along the lines of what you commented, definitely affordable housing is always in the back of my brain. I hope that one of the things that we continue to hear and we talk about so much is that this is a working document. We might have to revisit next year, and we don't want to, but it's one of those documents that I feel like is going to have to be revisited often. I hope in the near future, when it comes to affordable housing, that we can create some type of affordable housing, board to look at affordable housing, which brings together the Home Builders Association, the Triangle Apartment Association, and multiple community leaders and citizens and different people to start trying to look at that, that's one thing that's going all over the county, and many municipalities are creating these different affordable housing advisory boards to look at this, which is one of those hard topics right now, especially with the inflation on all building materials and everything else under the sun. So, this is a working document. I would like to say that I like the pedestrian oriented feel. Many times our citizens say they don't want to lose that small town feel, and I feel like in many ways this continues that character that many people move to Fuquay-Varina for. So I think this plan does focus on some of that character and continue to have that character throughout our many different residential, non-residential landscape of Fuquay-Varina. So I will say a lot of time went in this again as the last thing we just voted on. There's many things that we still got to work out, and it's just going to take time. But I think we have a good foundation here to work from, and then we can go back and revisit. This is not something we might have to go back and revisit next month in my eyesight. But I think we have a foundation that we can work from and start from and look at.
Lana, your company's built some incredible houses in Fuquay-Varina. I was glad that you provided those statistics because we are very proud of what your company has done in Fuquay-Varina. Hope that you find another project to be building in Fuquay-Varina again, because the two that you mentioned, one of them in our town limits, one outside of our town limits, but y'all done a beautiful project there. And resales stay on the market there for a very, very short time period. And so y'all have done a good job. Thank you for building our community. Anybody else have any comments, or if not?
I just have a comment.
Go ahead, Commissioner Harris.
I'll just be direct. I'm not ready to approve this tonight. I think that, there has been an attempt or an effort to include the public. This is so serious, I think, I would like to even have the board or staff to consider, and may have already done this. I didn't see it. Unfortunately, I missed the May 2nd meeting. But face-to-face conversations, I did review the written comments, and a lot of the comments express concerns about shaping the future of this community as it relates to our agricultural history, and I don't think we can ignore that part of our history. I think that's important for us, and I know this addresses something in regards to the rural residential, but we historically have been a farming community, and as we grow, we're going to impact families who have been in this community for generations, and I think that there is a value to hearing from those families and their voices in regards to how we impact their future here in this community. Certainly, we want to develop, we want to grow, we want to have a vision of Fuquay-Varina being inclusive and dynamic. But the reality is that a document such as this is so detailed. I mean, I haven't completed reading it myself, and I would love to read it even more and see if we can incorporate more feedback. I know Let's Talk Fuquay does provide an avenue for feedback. I just wonder how we have responded to the comments that we have received since we have received those comments after May 20th, on and before May 20th. So those would be my comments. I would just love to have more time to review this document and express my concerns, Mr. Mayor. I know some of you may have already done it, but I missed a meeting, and I did look at the written responses, and those are some of just the initial concerns that I have.
Mr. Manager, what can you speak to in regards to organizations, citizens that have met, input that's been involved with these points right here?
Sure. So we have met in person at the request of the HBA, the Triangle Community Coalition, representation from both of those organizations, individual developers who desire to meet one-on-one rather than with those larger groups. And to your point about individual property owner feedback, whenever we received a question about a designation of property on our land use plan, we made direct contact with those property owners and explained how the land use plan is intended to work. It is a vision for the future. It doesn't compel a property owner to sell their property or do anything with their property that they don't want to do. But should they choose to develop it themselves or sell it to a developer, this plan provides the vision for how that property, how the town wants to see that property developed in the future. And many of the individual property owners that are currently today in areas that are more rural in character, we have certainly tried through this, unless their property is directly on a major highway corridor like 401 or 55 or 42, we've tried to designate a character typology to that property that is either consistent or not far off from the current character of that property. So, for example, we don't necessarily have large acreage of property in rural areas out in the Willow Spring district identified for multifamily or for high-density subdivisions. Those are more for single-family housing and for types of development, forms of development that are more in line with the character of that area. That was one of the issues that we found with our 2035 community vision land use plan, is that in some areas of our community, that plan was perhaps too forward-thinking and not really in concert with the character of that area. And it raised a lot of consternation from people who live in those areas where they were used to more of a rural, spread out environment, and high-dense projects were approved. That was a drastic contrast to what they were used to. And so we're trying to strike that balance of creating an environment where the town can continue to grow and develop and address the needs of a growing southern Wake County and a growing region, while at the same time being sensitive and considerate of property owners' interest for the development of the future area around them. Mm-hmm. And so I know that, and our planning director can perhaps speak to this, but I know that our planning department spent considerable number of hours either in person or on the phone or virtually via Teams or Zoom, meeting with property owners to explain what these designations mean for the future of our community, not necessarily for what they would be compelled or asked to do today. No property owner is going to be asked to do anything with their property that they do not want to do with today. They have the right to hold on to their property for generations. They have the right to sell their property tomorrow for development. And this plan contemplates how those properties are developed in the future, not what is necessarily done with those properties today.
Any other questions, comments, discussions, concern, or thoughts in regards to this agenda item? Mr. Manager, when did you start the process sending this out to the public and to board members and anyone that could start looking at it? I mean, it's been earlier than this past Friday when we got the agenda, is that correct?
Oh, yeah. The land use plan has been publicly available, I believe, since March 31st.
Okay. Because I know we've had several meetings, not just you and me, but members, myself, with the public and different ones since that time period.
Yeah, and that's the recommended land use plan. I mean, we have, even before that, had information out that spoke to certain components of the land use plan to try to get feedback and input on that. But the full, complete document has been available since March 31st.
Okay. How about other board members? Have you studied document, feel good about the document tonight? Would like to move forward on the document? If so, I'll entertain a motion for either moving forward or motion to table if you do not want to move forward.
I think it covers everything we discussed at our retreat quite well. We talked extensively at the retreat about it. We've talked extensively since then about it. And I see everything that we've discussed at all of those meetings in this document. Obviously, it's a live document, like we're discussing, we'll change it as needed. But I think this is, right now, everything that we had discussed and that what we had wanted.
I just kind of got to get in my mind that, what do we mean by a live document? And because it's been how many years since we updated our land use plan?
Well, we've updated components of our land use plan annually when projects have come before us that have asked for modifications to the land use plan. We've made some textual modifications to the land use plan since the original adoption of it 5 years ago. I don't think it's unreasonable for this body to view this plan as a living document. It's a policy document. It's a guiding document. It's not an ordinance. That's what the land development ordinance is. To Commissioner Watson's statement, considerable time has been given to this plan, and both management and staff feel very confident that this plan hits on the notes and the tones that this board and that the community have, and the development community for that matter, have given feedback and input on. My recommendation is that we move forward with it and give the town staff, the development community, the community as a whole, an opportunity to work it and really see if this does in fact hit the right notes and the right tone for the future development of our community. If we find that we've gone too far in one direction, then you as the governing board always have the discretion to be able to move that needle back. I believe, in the conversations that we've had between management, staff, and board, we did feel like the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan was perhaps too flexible and unclear in some of the guidance for development in our community. And this plan aims to tighten that up, be more clear, more directive about that, and try to remove some of the gray area in what our intent is behind development in this community. And so I am of the opinion that giving us an opportunity to work this plan will truly tell the tale if we're on the right path or if we need to make some changes in the future. You may find that we do need to make some modifications in the future. You may find that this hits the target in the bullseye and that we're good with it for many, many years moving forward. I don't think we're going to wait 10 or 15 years to revisit this plan. That was never the intent with the last plan. But I do think giving us an opportunity to work it and to see how these changes affect the betterment of the community, that's the goal, to make us better, we're at the time for that now, is my recommendation.
And say, do you think we would even have enough by next retreat, enough information to really discuss where we are with it?
I think with the pace of development, we're going to have some good case studies to look at and discuss at retreat, absolutely.
This is not a zoning map, it's just land, and often we've had in our meetings, public hearings, we have land use plan amendments, it's just a direction. You can come with a recommendation for or against something, whether it matches the land use plan to this board, and this board can choose to approve something, whether it matches or does not match the land use plan on that. Meaning, if a piece of property is found that the designation, somebody makes a good case to have a different reason to have something different there, then every case is studied right there, and this board has the prerogative to be able to approve that something if it does not match the land use plan. Our intention is to have the direction out there for guidance for individuals in our community, and I think, just exactly what you said, the time that's been spent on that, it's gonna hit the mark pretty good on those. And if it happens to be an area that's been overlooked, then we can land use plan amend that at any board meeting.
Yeah, there's over 30,000 parcels in our jurisdiction. I'm not going to sit here and say that we 100% got every single one of them right. We may find that, we need to revisit one depending on what a development proposal is. I do think we got the majority of them right, if not even more than the majority of them. And, until this thing moves forward and we have an opportunity to work it, and the only way we work it is when a property owner wants to develop their property, either themselves or with a development partner. Until we have the opportunity to put it into
Practice.
real life working order, we're not going to know. And that's why my recommendation is, with the hours spent and the time and the energy spent and the feedback that we've received from the public and the outreach that we have intentionally worked with the public on, it's time to give us an opportunity to work this plan.
One other comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Harris.
Oh, I agree. I think that this is an important plan, and I commend the staff for the work that has been done. When you look at something of what we're proposing, April, May, April 30 days, then May 20th, 20 days, as far as trying to solicit feedback and have interaction with other people having lives to live and things to happen. Sometimes people may not respond as quickly as we would assume that they would respond, because we're doing this. I mean, your staff, you're doing this, you're in this every day. But the layperson may not necessarily have the time and the access to the understanding the process. So I think as much time as we can give within the context of having the public to understand what we're doing. Certainly, we can articulate that if a person has the freedom to manage their land and do whatever they need to do in regards to their property. But we understand that, but when you have the public at large who have an impression that something is being taken away or they aren't being heard, it gives us a different image when it comes to cooperating with the public. So the feedback that in reading some of the remarks, some of the people feel that they, number one, are being heard, and number two, that something is being taken away from them. And even though this may be the best for the community, which I believe it is, because I think it's a good idea to have that vision, I think the process, we should allow adequate time for the public to respond. Now, the urgency, we understand, because the staff has put a lot of work into it, and you've thought through it. But from the public and those who are impacted by this, I think maybe the extension of time for them to have more feedback is warranted. So that would be my response. Not necessarily do I oppose the land use plan, but I think that this is critical, it's crucial that we move forward as a community and have as many people to understand this process, citizens, the development community as well. As we move forward, I think that we'll come out with people feeling better and more supportive of what we're doing as a body. That would be my comment, Mr. Mayor. And I hope that's not interpreted that I'm against the plan, but I'm asking that I think that we consider that based on all the issues that we have to contend with and we've had. Am I?
Okay, thank you.
I see that, but I feel the other side of that is we have projects that have been sitting and waiting for us to get through this process to, so that they are going to be part of the vision for what we want for this community. So I understand both sides of that. I am torn about it.
I entertain a motion by the board.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve CTA 2022-03 amendment to the 2035 Community Vision Land Use Plan as presented and recommended by town management and staff.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we approve the plan 30 days from today, as a substitute
Mr. Attorney,
motion.
you got to help me with this resort. You cannot take up that until we take up the other one, or what's the rules?
Are you trying to modify his motion? Is that
Yes, to extend it for 30 days.
Okay, do we have a second on that modification?
Do I have a second?
We don't have a second on anything yet. It said in the motion at moments after the first motion was made. We have nothing been seconded yet.
No,
It's amendment to the motion.
my amendment supersedes his primary motion.
Let's pull it up. Okay, amendment to a motion requires a second, and then a majority vote to decide whether the amendment is accepted.
Does the one that makes the motion need to accept?
Well, he's made the motion to modify, to amend the motion, so we need to get a second now. from
I'll
somebody
second
else.
that so we can get a vote on it.
Which one are we seconding?
I'm
That's
seconding the
Commissioner
amendment.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
then we got the vote.
All right, so we're going to call the question on the amendment motion before we vote on the original motion. And then if the amendment motion passes, we will no longer vote on the original motion. So what it boils down to is a vote to decide, do you want to delay voting for 30 days, or do you want to vote and pass tonight? The first question is going to be, would you like to delay 30 days? Okay, making sure I understand the question of the board right now. So an aye vote right now is voting to delay, or table for 30 days. I call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
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 We're going to poll it as Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Gardner. Ayes. Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Did I hear Commissioner Haynes vote?
I think the modification is a little vague on just saying table it for 30 days.
No, it's not. I'm sorry.
Town Attorney, will you speak to these things?
I mean, is it putting it back on?
Okay, that's what I understood. That's what was presented. Okay.
I can make consideration to table for 30 days, and that'll satisfy.
Really, you're tabling it for more than 30 days, because we don't have a meeting 30 days from today.
Because that'll be 7.
What's the next meeting after 30 days from
Well,
today?
July 11th would be the meeting beyond 30 days. The next meeting is June 21st.
So what's the protocol on this? The
June.
motion was made for 30 days. We got a new date. What's the progress, Town Attorney? What do we do?
Okay, we'll second that again.
Second what?
The motion to amend to a date certain being July the 11th, correct?
Commissioner Harris, we're going to let Commissioner Harris make his motion on the date that he would like.
It's either June 21st, less than 30 days, July 11th, more than 30 days. We don't have 2 meetings in July, so.
Okay. you don't
And then
have to
there's the
do-
question of, well, that's it.
I was thinking that our the next meeting would be the 21st.
Correct. Less than 30 days from now.
Okay, and the next meeting for that, because we don't have a meeting in July, would be the
It's July 11th.
July 11th.
Is the only meeting in July is July 11th.
July 11th would be the day.
Your motion is to table to July 11th?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Let's do a hand raise vote, which does not appear to be unanimous. Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Gardner, Commissioner Haynes voting in aye. Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Commissioner Watson, Mayor Pro Tem Smith, okay. Motion passes. What does that do to the other motions on the table? Anything we need to do with that?
Well, I think we're gonna have to run those together, so you're probably gonna have to entertain a motion to table consideration on that.
That's right, the LDO runs with the land use plan, so.
So 7C.
We're not talking about existing motions on the table that we had talked about, nothing that
No.
did, okay. Okay, motion passes. Okay, June, you have that date?
Thank you.
Yeah, so just as a point of clarity, so we've had opportunities for the public to engage with us since the planning board meeting, before the planning board meeting. We delayed it 30 days, the planning board delayed it 30 days already from the time that was originally proposed. Is there any direction for staff, or are we just waiting to see if anybody else picks up the phone and calls us to talk about it
So,
for the next 40 days?
so I think that was my, in the middle of all these motions, is the question, what is our plan for these next 30 days?
That's my question as well.
Because I think it needs to be very intentional to make sure that we can satisfy, all of the board members for sure. I understand needing more time. It's just, are we putting it back on Let's Talk FV? Are we?
That's my question to the
Do
board.
we need
We've
to
had
set up-
1,800, I think was, how many responses on Let's Talk 1,800 responses. Since the planning board, we have received,
Do we need to set
zero
up
input
public,
and feedback
another
on it.
public meeting? Those are my questions.
public hearing on the land use plan was open and closed.
Right.
We have one person speak here tonight in regards to that, so I think with the question, management needs direction, and we need direction on what information do you want in the next 5 weeks? Or what do you want to do?
In the next 5 weeks, the summer months of June and partially July.
Because if you are delaying tonight just to delay, but there's no reason or anything that's gonna be gained, what's the point of just being delayed tonight? That's my question to board members.
And we're happy just to sit it on a shelf, but I just didn't know if there was any specific direction
I
that the
haven't heard
town board had.
anything. I did hear Commissioner Harris say that he wanted more time to read it. I do understand that. I did not hear anything else from other board members that said any reason for why they wanted this delayed. If you think that you want to change your mind, what do they do to that? Those rules, town attorney, if they wanted to. I'm not saying they do. How do you retake up an issue? You can reconsider the motion if you want to, if you think you may. What would somebody need to do if they thought they wanted to do that? Town attorney?
It's a two-part motion. Then moves to reconsider. If there's a second, the motion's taken up.
If, and it may not be the desire of this board over here. I did not hear any direction to management on something to do over the next 5 weeks
Well,
on there. So that would be, what would be done is a reconsideration of the motion. Is there a motion to reconsider the motion before we move on to our next item on the agenda? Manager, I think that's the direction of the board is.
I would like to know from Commissioner Harris, what did you envision, how to better, how to reach the people that you think have not been represented or that say they feel that they felt left out?
first, let me just take this off of me. This is not just me. I think that we have a staff that can continue the process. The end date was closed May 20th. Am I correct?
This public hearing tonight, wasn't there, Manager?
I mean, but as far as soliciting feedback and doing those kinds of things, correct?
No, we received feedback all the way up to the time, we were open to receiving feedback all the way up to the time we published the town board agenda
Well,
last
then
week.
then obviously you can continue to receive feedback.
Well, sure, we can sit and wait and see if there's more feedback.
But what was that date about, May 20th? That was just for what was in the written document? Okay,
That's right.
got that.
So then the public hearing was tonight, and I know I received feedback up until over the weekend and met with people and spoke to you, and I
We
know-
received some emails
Today.
since May 20th as well that we've
Yeah,
responded to.
Yeah, we have too.
Mhm.
We'll leave it open and continue to receive more emails and feedback then.
If that's the pleasure of the board, that's
And
fine.
that's, to me, the process.
I
That's what-
just wanted to
that
make
was
sure
the
I had some
intent of
clarity
it.
on the process. or
That
what
was the intent of my motion.
Okay, all right.
Now, what is, Mr. Mayor, what does this do with the, as Commissioner Gardner talked about earlier, I guess, are there any ramifications from the projects that are still out there
The guidance,
waiting
the
for?
guidance that we received from the town board was to hold off on those until we had clarity on an adopted land use plan and land development ordinance that gave clear direction. So my recommendation would be that we do not change course on that, and that we continue to let this process come to a completion before giving consideration and taking action, or before giving consideration on those projects. I mean, there's lots of parcels here that are affected by this proposed recommended plan. And my advice to you would be, if you believe that this plan is a good plan and that this is the vision you see for future development of our community, is to not be considering development proposals that are counter to that.
So if I, basically, till the next meeting, nothing would change.
Till the next two meetings.
Few next two meetings, the July meeting. Any other further comments from board members? Do you feel good with the decision that you made, so we can move to the next decision?
I feel like I've got. I do.
I do not hear any reconsidered motions. I don't hear any motions on the table. We can move to the next item on the agenda.
What does that do to 7C? Anything?
7C is, you cannot take action. Taking action on 7C would be premature without action on 7B. So,
that's what I thought.
for your and the public benefit, certainly Pam can give that presentation or wait until, or you can just simply make a motion to table it until July 11th as well, and she can provide that presentation on July 11th. You do have a scheduled public hearing, so you would probably need to, that one you have not opened yet, so you could open and continue that public hearing till July 11th.
I think we
All right,
should
we're
have
going
the
to-
presentation and open and.
I'm going to
open
read the
that
item
public
and
hearing,
we'll
yeah.
move on to that point then.
Open
Okay,
it.
so next item on our agenda is going to be item 7C, Land Development Ordinance Amendment 2040, Community Vision Land Use Plan, Town of Fuquay-Varina, CTA 2022-04, Amendment Number 19. Why don't, Planning Director Davison, why don't you submit your information into the public record, and then we're going to call for a motion to table and continue the public hearing at that point and do your full presentation when we're taking information at that point.
So you don't want the full presentation?
Do
Or
you
you
want a
do?
full presentation, or you just want to open it, public hearing, so we can continue it to the next meeting?
I'd like to go ahead and have the full presentation and then open the hearing and continue it.
You don't want to do the full presentation again the night that we vote
I
on
can
it?
do it again.
No.
My recommendation is if you're going to receive the presentation, receive it on the night you're actually going to consider it, not
Okay, all
On
Yeah,
tonight.
we're not doing anything with this tonight, then?
That. That's
Okay. Okay, I will entertain the hearing is now open. I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing and table for future consideration.
Mr. Mayor, I make a
July
motion, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to continue CTA 2022-04 amendment to the Land Development Ordinance as recommended to July 11th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7D, public hearings, Town Code Amendment, Town of Fuquay-Varina Land Development Ordinance Amendment Number 20, National Flood Insurance Program Update for Flood Damage Preventions Regulations, CTA 2022-05. More information about this agenda item will be presented by Planning Director Davison.
Thank you. I'm submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents to the official records of the town. Purpose of this agenda item is to consider a proposed amendment to the Land Development Ordinance that addresses several areas for improvement. new Federal Emergency Management Association, FEMA mapping, known as the Flood Insurance Study Report and Flood Insurance Rate Maps for the town of Fuquay-Varina will become effective on July 19th, 2022. For the town to remain members of the National Flood Insurance Program, and for residents in Fuquay-Varina to be eligible for flood insurance, the town is required to comply with 44 CFR Part 60.3D of the NFIP regulations prior to the effective date of the new mapping. NFIP regulation compliance includes amending existing floodplain requirements, adopting new requirements, and showing evidence that the regulations amended meet or exceed the minimum requirements. Staff has incorporated model ordinance language provided by the North Carolina Department of Public Safety into the Land Development Ordinance in order to comply with these requirements. The proposed changes are as follows. Section 1, Article I. Section 1401 of Article I has been completely rewritten per the direction of the state's model ordinance for full compliance with NFIP. Section 2, Article S. The following items have been added to this section. Some of these items may already be included in Article S, but have been included again because they are particular to the flood damage prevention regulations included in Section 9-1401 of Article I. Accessory structure, addition, alteration of a watercourse, appeal, area of future conditions flood hazard, chemical storage facility, design flood, development activity, digital flood insurance rate map, DFIRM, existing building and existing structure, floodplain administrator, flood-resistant material, floodway encroachment analysis, letter of map change, light-duty truck, manufactured home, map repository, non-conversion agreement, technical bulletin and technical fact sheet, temperature controlled. The following items have been struck from this section as they have been either better defined elsewhere in the section or are now obsolete: existing construction and mean sea level. The following items have been amended better to conform to the usage in the updated flood damage prevention regulation section: area of shallow flooding, existing manufactured home park or manufactured home subdivision, floodway, future conditions base flood, future conditions base flood elevation, hazardous waste management facility, highest adjacent grade, lowest adjacent grade, recreational vehicle, reference level, regulatory flood protection elevation, substantial improvement, violation, water surface elevation, and watercourse. Management and staff recommend approval of the proposed town code amendment. It is reasonable in the public's best interest as it improves upon the land development ordinance's intent to modernize, provide sustainability, and allows for ease of use and enforcement specifically concerning the town's current development standards. At the May 16, 2022 regular meeting, the Planning Board unanimously voted to recommend approval. The recommended motion tonight is to approve CTA 2022-05, an amendment to the Town Code of Ordinances, Part 9, Land Development Ordinance, as presented and recommended by town management and staff. The text amendment improves upon the Land Development Ordinance and is reasonable and in the best interest of the public for the reasons identified by management and staff. I'm available to answer any questions.
I don't think there's any questions yet at this time. Director Davison? Thank you very much. The hearing is now open. Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in favor of the Town Code Amendment? Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in opposition to the Town Code Amendment? Scott, do you have anyone signed up virtually to speak in favor?
No, sir.
Do you have anyone signed up virtually to speak in opposition?
No, sir.
Okay. Hearing is now closed. Any discussion by the board? What's the pleasure by the board?
Mayor Massengill, I make a motion that we approve CTA-2022-05, an amendment to the Town Code of Ordinances, Part 9, Land Development Ordinance, as presented and recommended by the town management and staff. The text amendment improves upon the Land Development Ordinance and is reasonable and in the best interest of the public for the reasons identified by management and staff.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Gotta do the seconds fast. Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next public hearing on our agenda is voluntary annexation petition, Banks Family Farm, Gray Methven, Wakefield Development, 8537 Lake Wheeler Road, ANX 2021-08. More information about this agenda item will be presented by Planning Director Davison.
Thank you. I'm submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official records of the town. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider an annexation ordinance extending the corporate limits of the town of Fuquay-Varina following receipt of a petition for voluntary annexation of property owned by Banks Family Farm, Gray Methven, Wakefield Development, containing a total of 36.3 acres. This property is non-contiguous to the town's corporate limits. Currently, there is no water or sewer available to the property. The petitioner has signed an annexation agreement related to the provision of town services. At the May 17, 2022 meeting, the town board instructed the town clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the applicant's petition for voluntary annexation. The town clerk certified at that time the petition was sufficient and met the requirements prescribed by the North Carolina general statutes. The town board has also adopted a resolution setting a public hearing for June 6, 2022 town board meeting. The present value of the property is $1,883,534. The recommended motion is to adopt the annexation ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the town of Fuquay-Varina to include property owned by the Banks Family Farm, Gray Methven Wakefield Development, ANX 2021-08, and approve the declaration of annexation agreement as presented and recommended.
Thank you, Director Davison, very much. The hearing is now open. Does anyone speaking in person wish to speak in favor of the voluntary annexation petition? Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in opposition to the voluntary annexation petition? Scott, does anyone attending virtually wish to speak in favor of the voluntary annexation petition?
No, sir.
Scott, does anybody attending virtually wish to speak in opposition to the voluntary annexation petition?
No, sir.
The hearing is now closed. Any discussion by the board, or what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt the annexation ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the town of Fuquay-Varina to include property owned by Banks Family Farm, and to approve the declaration of annexation agreement as presented and recommended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next public hearing, item 7F, voluntary annexation petition, Jason and Janet Schwartz, 1612 South Main Street, ANX 2022-08. More information about this agenda item will be presented by Planning Director Davison. You're a busy lady tonight.
I am. It's my night. I am submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents into the official records of the town. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider an annexation ordinance extending the corporate limits of the town of Fuquay-Varina following receipt of a petition for voluntary annexation of property owned by Jason and Janet Schwartz containing a total of 4.24 acres in non-contiguous to town corporate limits. Public water utility is available to the property. The petitioner has signed an annexation agreement related to the provision of town services. At the May 17, 2022 meeting, the town board instructed the town clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the applicant's petition for voluntary annexation. The town clerk certified at that time the petition was sufficient and met the requirements prescribed by the North Carolina general statutes. The town board also adopted a resolution setting a public hearing for the June 6, 2022 town board meeting. The present value of the property is $183,000. The recommendation tonight is to adopt the annexation ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the town of Fuquay-Varina to include property owned by Jason and Janet Schwartz, ANX 2022-08, and to approve the declaration of annexation agreement as presented and recommended.
Thank you, Director Davison, very much. The hearing is now open. Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in favor of the voluntary annexation petition? Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in opposition to the voluntary annexation petition? Does anyone attending virtually wish to speak in favor of the voluntary annexation petition? Scott?
No, sir. No hands are raised.
Scott, does anyone attending virtually wish to speak in opposition to the voluntary annexation petition?
No, sir, no hands are raised.
The hearing is now closed. Any discussion by the board? Well, if not, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the annexation ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the town of Fuquay-Varina to include properties owned by Jason and Janet Swartz, ANX 2022-08, and approve the declaration of annexation agreement as presented and recommended.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next public hearing, item 7G, voluntary annexation petition, Steve Medlin, Springville, Medlin, parcel 1 and 2, 7110 and 7104 Kennebec Road, ANX 2020-16. More information about this agenda item will be presented by Planning Director Davison.
It's my last one tonight. I am
Come on now.
submitting the agenda abstract and supporting documents in the official records of the town. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider an annexation ordinance extending the corporate limits of the town of Fuquay-Varina following receipt of a petition for voluntary annexation of property owned by Steve Medlin, otherwise known as Springvale Medlin, parcels 1 and 2, containing a total of 12.801 acres, which is non-contiguous to the town's corporate limits. Public water utility is available to the property. The petitioner has signed an annexation agreement related to the provisions of town services. At the May 17, 2022 meeting, the town board instructed the town clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the applicant's petition for voluntary annexation. The town clerk certified at that time the petition was sufficient and met the requirements prescribed by the North Carolina general statutes. The town board also adopted a resolution setting a public hearing for the June 6, 2022 town board meeting. The present value of the property is $470,158. The recommended motion is to adopt the annexation ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the town of Fuquay-Varina to include the property owned by Steve Medlin, known as Springville Medlin, parcels 1 and 2, annexation ANX 2020-16, and to approve the declaration of annexation agreement as presented and recommended.
Thank you very much, Director Davison. The hearing is now open. Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in favor of the voluntary annexation petition? Does anyone attending in person wish to speak in opposition to the voluntary annexation petition? Does anyone attending virtually wish to speak in favor of the voluntary annexation petition?
No, sir.
Scott, does anyone attending virtually wish to speak in opposition to the voluntary annexation petition?
No, sir.
The hearing is now closed. If there's no discussion by the board, what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the annexation ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the town of Fuquay-Varina to include property owned by Steve Medlin, ANX 2020-16, and to approve the declaration of annexation agreement as presented and recommended.
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Director Davison, for those public hearings requests right there. Good job. Next item on our agenda will be item 8, the consent agenda. What is the board's pleasure on the items on the consent agenda? Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 8A, 8B, 8C, 8D, 8E, 8F, 8G, 8H, 8I, and 8J.
Second.
As presented and recommended.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Good job. Half the alphabet right there, 13 letters in there, but
I was getting
Motion
confused.
passes.
I was getting one out of order.
You did good.
Next up, we will have administrative reports. Item 10A, infrastructure agreement, Sippy Hall Springs subdivision. More information about this agenda item will be presented by Public Utilities Director Wagner.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I have item 10A, which is the infrastructure agreement for Sippy Springs subdivision. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider the approval of an infrastructure agreement between the town of Fuquay-Varina and RP Wellens Land Development LLC for utility improvements related to the Sippy Springs subdivision. RP Wellens Land Development LLC is developing property located at 1816 Old Bramble Road, or Old Bramble Lane, as a single-family neighborhood named Sippy Springs Subdivision. The proposed 16-lot residential subdivision received utility allocation approval from the town board during its regular meeting on July 12, 2021. The town development ordinance requires RP Wellens Land Development LLC to install 8-inch diameter sewer main allowing gravity sewer to flow through the subdivision to a connection point on South North Carolina Highway 55. The sewer main installation in the subdivision provides the opportunity for the upstream Lake Stone pump station to be taken offline and to gravity flow to the connection point on South North Carolina Highway 55. As part of their project and to allow gravity sewer to flow from the existing neighborhood developments, the developer has agreed to add additional sewer infrastructure that includes added sewer depth, maintenance manholes, and the extending of approximately 250 feet of 8-inch diameter sewer main. The additional sewer infrastructure will cause the Lake Stone pump station to be taken offline and gravity to flow through the subdivision. The cost for this additional sewer service infrastructure is $75,585, for which the town has agreed to reimburse the developer for constructing. In addition, the town will decommission the Lake Stone pump station during future planning projects. To establish reimbursement for the extension, the infrastructure agreement has been prepared. Elements of the agreement proposed for consideration are as follows. The developer shall design, build, and construct the development in accordance with town development standards. The developer shall pay all applicable development fees, including system development fees, recreation unit fees, and other applicable fees as prescribed by the town code of ordinances and annual budget ordinance and fee schedule. The town shall be indemnified and held harmless from any claims for damage of any kind. Extending the sewer main will be based on alternative bid pricing. The town's reimbursement will not exceed $75,585. The agreement is in accordance with North Carolina General Statutes 168-320. Town management and staff have worked with the town attorney and RP Wellens Land Development LLC on this agreement. Management and staff recommend approval of this agreement subject to the town attorney's review as to form. There is a fiscal note for this. The collection system reimbursement amount is not to exceed $75,585. The town's enterprise fund has established funds for infrastructure reimbursements, and there are sufficient funds for this proposed reimbursement. The recommended motion is to authorize the town manager to execute an infrastructure agreement between the town of Fuquay-Varina and Hot Springs Subdivision as presented and recommended, subject to the town attorney approval as to form. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Director Wagner. Any questions, discussion by the board? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we authorize the town manager to execute an infrastructure agreement between the town of Fuquay-Varina and Hot Springs Subdivision as presented and recommended, subject to the town attorney approval as to form.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next item on our agenda of the business manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few things to report on tonight under other business. First, with my report to the board, did just want to make the board aware that the Art Center summer camps are off to a good start with registration and participation this year. So we're glad to see camps being utilized at our Art Center and our Parks and Recreation Department. And our new theater season will be announced soon, so we'll have more information about that. That'll be exciting here in the coming weeks. The Parks and Recreation Community Cultural Resources Department has been receiving a good amount of input thus far for the Hilltop Needmore Town Park and Preserve Master Plan. And so as that process continues to move forward, we'll continue to engage the community and receive input on the future development of that site. And the youth sports fall registration began today. So if you know anybody who's got a child that is interested in participating in fall youth sports, now's the time to go ahead and register and sign up for that. And then we do have a new hire, a recreation superintendent in our Parks and Recreation Cultural Resources Department, Mark Hassig. And so we're excited about Mark coming on board. Along those same lines, we have a new hire in our sanitation department, Donald Cumbo. He started with the sanitation department today as an equipment operator, so we're glad to have Donald be a part of our team. Our planning department will be interviewing soon for a vacant Planner 2 position. And I did want to just share with the town board tonight that our planning director, Pam Davison, recently completed the UNC School of Government Community Development Academy. This is an intensive 6-day course which is designed for community development practitioners and covers the concepts, methods, and strategies of community development. The course provides practitioners like Pam with perspectives and practical skills surrounding community development in North Carolina. Topics include community development finance, affordable housing strategies and tools, the role of economic development, grant programs, environmental finance, visioning and citizen participation, tools for group decision-making, purchasing and contracting, and measuring success and grants management. So a pretty comprehensive course that Pam recently completed. We want to just congratulate you on taking the time while still working to go through that professional development and enhance your value to the organization. We appreciate it, Pam. Along those same lines, I've kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier that Teresa Wilder, our my executive assistant, management's executive assistant, and deputy town clerk, was going through the municipal clerk program, certification program. Well, Teresa has officially been awarded the prestigious designation of North Carolina Certified Municipal Clerk from the North Carolina Association of Municipal Clerks, along with the School of Government of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Again, a very extensive, lengthy program so that Teresa can continue to provide great service and be a little bit of a redundancy for our town board when our town clerk is either on vacation or perhaps under the weather, or just a lot going on and needs additional hands on deck. Teresa now has the certification to help with that process. Big event in our community this Saturday. Our Economic Downtown Development Department and the Fuquay-Varina Downtown Association will be hosting Dinner on Depot, which is always an event that we look forward to here in our community, and was sidetracked a little bit due to COVID in the last couple of years, but is back on course this year, so we're excited about Dinner on Depot. Our fire department participated in the state's Smoke Alarm Saturday this past Saturday on June 4th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. They focused on the Lincoln Heights neighborhood this year and were successful. 37 homes were checked, 82 smoke detectors were installed, and 5 homes were found with no detectors at all that have been remedied. The department had 5 teams working in this area. And just want to recognize some of our staff that participated on Saturday. Deputy Fire Marshal Laura Hill was the lead staff member for this program, so she coordinated it. Deputy Chief Jim Jones, and it was more than just staff. His wife, Sherry, helped out on Saturday as well, so we had some spouses involved. Division Chief Scott Daniel, Battalion Chief Garland Johnston, Fire Captain Josh Herring, Fire Marshal Buddy Walters and his wife Leanne, Deputy Fire Marshal Vinny, I always get Vinny's last name kind of mixed up. It's got a bunch of letters that are silent in there. Ferranza. Fire Engineer Joe Carter, Fire Engineer Matt Nelson, Firefighter Juan Varela, Firefighter John Leonard, Senior Program Support Specialist Dana Johnson and her husband Jeff, and Chief Malden. And so I want to recognize and thank all of those staff members for the community engagement and the public safety component of it to help keep our community safe with smoke detectors. I also provided in front of your tables a fire department recruitment brochure. Chief, you want to step to the podium and just mention a little something about this for the board's knowledge?
Mayor, Commissioner, so as far as our recruitment for new personnel for Fire Station 4, we have partnered with Wake County and 5 other departments within the county to look at recruitment for non-certified members. We would hire these members and send them to the Wake County Fire Academy to get all their training, education to become full-time with us. We've been working with them for several months now. You have in front of you a couple brochures, one that talks about a career in a year, and that's our motto for this recruitment is someone can come off the street within a year, they can have their certifications and start their career here at the greatest fire department there is in Wake County in North Carolina. So that's how we're selling this thing, and we're going to continue to sell it that way. So, and we also, on the one that's double-sided, we will be holding a fire service expo this coming Saturday from 10 to noon at the Fuquay-Varina Presbyterian Church, 309 North Ennis Street. They're doing several of these, as you can see, across the county. This is our time to sell ourselves at this event, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout and be a successful expo for us as we move forward trying to get staffing for our new station.
Chief, that's exactly right. New station coming up, you're going to be hiring more firefighters, more members of the fire services here in Fuquay-Varina, and I think this definitely ought to really be attractive to somebody, especially that you get paid while you go to school, and it's no cost.
Yes,
you don't
sir.
have to pay the school and top it off. Thank you for partnering with Wake County on that and seeking this out and bringing this to Fuquay-Varina. It's been good. And just as you mentioned earlier, you said best fire department, Wake County. You were talking about Fuquay-Varina is the best in Wake County of all of them, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Absolutely.
That's right. Not that Wake County is the best.
In my
Fuquay-Varina is the
eyes,
best. That's exactly right. So, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank y'all.
It won't be long. We'll be breaking ground on that new station and filling it up.
We can only hope. Yes, sir.
No blue fire trucks.
That's right.
Only red. Okay. Thank you.
A few other items to just report to the board this evening on. Thank you, Chief. Human Resources Department has been busy the last several weeks planning for and administering a successful open enrollment period for employees with respect to benefits. And so all of our employees are getting educated on the changes to benefits being offered next fiscal year, as well as some new benefits that they may be eligible for or might wish to consider electing. And so our HR department has been, amongst other things, very busy with that. Police department has been active with community engagement in recent weeks, both in and around the community, and specifically in our schools within the last couple of weeks. And we also have 2 new hires, Brody Smith and Kyle Fonda, who will be starting with us soon. So we're glad to have those 2 gentlemen joining our police force. Progress continues to be made on the water partnership project. And to an earlier point that was made about funding for that, and obviously it remains to be seen on how this turns out, but it is worth noting and informing the board on that Representative Perret and Representative John Sauls out of Lee County, with a handful of other representatives in the House, have introduced a bill that aims to appropriate $100 million towards the regional water partnership that we are a member of. This has been filed, and it will now go through the process. This would be huge for us and our partners if it were to be approved by the legislature. In addition, it's also worth noting that on the Senate side, Senator Batch also introduced a bill to assist with funding on the project as well. And so I think the House bill will probably be the one that takes the lead on the efforts, but we're just excited that we're even in the conversation with funding, especially at the levels that are being considered or discussed.
Manager, you notice we got one large amount of money already from the General Assembly. We got this one right here in the works. Continuing, we both stay very close there at the General Assembly with that, and so these are talking about game-changing money for a few Fuquay-Varina's project right here.
That's right.
And this is huge, and I think that we're on the radar, and that's good. And it's good that everybody can partner together about that. That's what this board is wanting right here, to be able to partner with a group of communities to be able to really get a project done, and General Assembly appreciates that. We appreciate the money.
We do. We do. So we're thankful to those elected officials who are working on our behalf. I mentioned at our last meeting we had our federal elected officials that were working to help secure some federal appropriations, and now we've got state officials looking to do the same thing. So I want to thank them for their leadership helping us out, exactly as the mayor said. We had a fantastic employee spring luncheon. I want to just thank all of our elected officials that were there, who attended and helped serve and care for our town employees. I know it was very much appreciated. The food was historic, I think. I mean, I had most of our employees saying this is the menu that we need for the future of our employee gatherings. So it might not be the last pig or turkey you cook for us, Commissioner Haynes. We may have to solicit your culinary mastery again in the future. I'm giving all the good adjectives, I hope, for for your cooking. It was very good.
Commissioner Haynes, thank you. That's exactly right. The staff loved it. The town loved it. Thank you for participating with that.
And our staff, too. We had some members of our directors who helped serve and clean up and just make it easier for a lot of our employee teams to just enjoy the moment that they were
That's right.
in there. And I think our employees really seemed to enjoy it, and smiles on their faces, and had a good time. So
A lot of volunteers, a lot of help to make that happen.
and appreciate the town board, giving us the opportunity to do that. That's it requires commitment all the way to the very top, and so we appreciate that. I did meet with Brian Hicks, who is the general manager of the Wake County Alcohol Beverage Commission, and I believe I put in front of your tables some packets that he left. Brian is sort of taking the tour of Wake County to educate communities on some of the things that the ABC Commission here in Wake County are working on to enhance, and they're building new stores because of the growth in Wake County as well. And there's revenue that comes back to each of the municipalities through the ABC board and the sale of spirituous liquor. And so we benefit from that too. About $190,000 a year in revenue we receive off of that, and so that goes a long way. So it was a good meeting, and I wanted to provide that information that Brian had left with me to you, so you would also be able to inform yourself on the updates that are going on there. Run the Quay was this past weekend. It was by all measurement a success. So congratulations to the Chamber of Commerce for the great work that they did to continue to put that great event on. It's lots of things contribute to putting Fuquay-Varina on the map, but that race is one of them. People come from way outside of the Fuquay-Varina community to run that race. It's a qualifying race where it contributes to competitive racing points for competitive racers, and it's also just a great community event for public health and well-being. And so congratulations to the Chamber of Commerce on their hard work there and the individuals that plan for that event. It's no small race. It's one of the bigger races in the region, and it takes a lot of planning and a lot of volunteerism to make that event happen with success. Earlier tonight, and I'm afraid the gentleman has already left. I was going to make comment on it after the consent agenda, but we'll try to connect with him directly tomorrow. But there was a question of how the tennis courts at the two high schools would be accessible once the joint use agreement was executed. And obviously the school, they're on the school property, the school has first use of those. It appears that the majority of the availability of those tennis courts will be on weekends and after school hours, not during the school day. And so we will work to educate the community on that through our website and our Parks and Recreation social media. And our staff will make sure that those facilities are accessible and available, unlocking the gates and making sure they're available. That's a part of the joint use agreement on those hours, times, and days that they are available to the public. So there will be information that will be out on our website, out on our Parks and Recreation social media, and our staff will be the ones handling the accessibility component of it. I was hoping he would have stayed to have heard that, but we'll try to connect with him directly and make sure he's aware of that. And hopefully he can help us distribute that information to other tennis players as well. That'll be the goal. One other, so a few other things, and there's one more kind of clarifying question I wanted to ask on an earlier agenda item for tonight, just to make sure I'm clear. But just a few other things that are in your agenda materials under other business. Mike Wagner, our Public Utilities Director, did prepare and provide for the board's information the North Harnett Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant and Terrible Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant reconciliation reports. Periodically, after months or even up to a year, once development comes online, houses are built and certificate of occupancies are issued, we're able to assess real utilization versus paper utilization to understand how much potential capacity we can bring back to those plants. And so Mike recently completed that reconciliation process, and those reports are available to you. We're not picking up a ton of capacity, but every little bit helps to extend along until our plants are expanded. And so periodically Mike will be doing this sort of reconciliation as we are working to expand our water and wastewater treatment capacity. Project status report for June 2022 is included in your agenda materials. Numerous pages of projects that are actively ongoing and in the works. Familiarize yourself with those if you haven't already, and happy to answer any questions that the board might have on those. Coffee with a Cop will be at Meridian at Broad Street Market Apartments, Tuesday, June 7th from 9 to 10:30 a.m. Hilltop Needmore Town Park and Preserve Master Plan Community Input Opportunity. This will actually be at the Hilltop Needmore Town Park and Preserve, June 13th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Independence Day celebration at South Park, Friday, July 1st. The gates open at 6 p.m., and if it's any indication of how it's been in years past, it's going to be a crowded, well-attended event, so earlier you get there, the better. July Town Board meeting, as we discussed tonight, will be one meeting in the month of July, July 11th at 7 p.m. There is no meeting on July 4th and no meeting on July 19th, as is customary. And then there is a local officials information meeting. This is tomorrow at 4 p.m. It's a virtual meeting, I believe, via Zoom. All of the town board members, I believe, received an email about this. This is regarding an intersection improvement project that NCDOT is currently in the assessment process of at NC 42 and Hilltop Road area. Not at 42 and Hilltop Road exactly, but it's in the area of where Panther Creek and Walter Myatt. There's sort of a triangular confusion of roads and intersections there, and DOT is looking. They identified that. Them and Campo identified that intersection, or those intersections, as a hot spot in the 2019 Southwest Area Study. And so DOT is now getting to assessing and evaluating what design elements would need to go into making that improvement. And so they've invited local public officials, and really I think anyone in the community perhaps can get onto that Zoom link and at least hear the presentation tomorrow at 4 p.m. There will be members of management and staff that will be participating on that as well. And typically, I'll try to find the answer out to this and maybe communicate this with you, but typically when they have these types of informational meetings, especially virtually, they will record them so that you can go back later and see it if you weren't able to actually participate and be involved in it the day of. So we'll verify that that is going to be their continued course of action. The last thing I wanted just to mention before sort of wrapping up, obviously tonight the town board took action to delay consideration of the land use plan and the LDO till July 11th. And I just want to make sure I understand expectation of the town board. There are times when we will receive input from individual property owners, developers, perhaps groups that represent certain interests, like the development community, for example. We certainly always welcome that input and listen to that input and give consideration to that input. We've gone through this process for numerous months now, and I'm very confident in the recommendation we're making with our plan. In the event that input is received that we do not agree with, it's not uncommon, or it has happened, where a statement has been made, I gave input, and the town didn't listen to me. And I just want to make sure it's not the expectation of the board that just because input is given, that we necessarily have to agree with that input and make a change to our recommendation. We listen and receive all input, but that doesn't mean we always agree with it. But the reaction is, you didn't agree with me, so you didn't listen to me. And I just want to make sure I want to know, is the expectation that we change our recommendation for any input that is given to us in the next 35 days? We're certainly going to, in good faith, hear any input that's provided and give consideration to it. But if we don't happen to agree with it, I just want to make sure that I'm not going against town board expectation. Any
Bill?
feedback there?
Commissioner Harris, you have a comment you want to make?
I think it's up to you to make that comment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so then based on the three that made the motion and voted on that, my takeaway from that would be that you would take any feedback from the public that garners any feedback. Is it possible somebody could provide you some feedback to change your mind on something new you hadn't thought of? Anything's possible. I find that highly unlikely, the amount of time that's been spent investigating this on there, and to simply what I take away from these board members right here, and I'm hoping they will speak up and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that they simply wanted 5 more weeks to read it themselves and allow a chance for any public people that didn't get around to it in the past nearly 3 months to have a chance to be able to say something.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that expectation, because I've seen it in the past happen before where
I don't think you should be changing your recommendation so you don't believe it.
just because we don't necessarily agree, the accusation then becomes, well, we didn't listen, and that's not the case. We always listen, but we don't necessarily always agree.
Commissioner Haynes, Commissioner Garner, did I sum up? Not trying to put words in your mouth?
No, what I like to hear is when somebody brings up something that I haven't come across in the discussion or heard in the discussion myself, is, that staff can say, we heard this, but this is what we think in light of what we've already put together here regarding that issue. I do like to hear that kind of thing.
Okay.
That give you clarification, management, on
that helps out.
what they're looking for?
Yep, that helps out.
I don't think you're being asked to change your recommendation. It's just.
Yeah, I'm clear. I'm just I will make sure I understood the town board's expectation, because it'll be interesting to see.
I don't know what's going to come out of it,
see what happens in the next 35 days.
I don't know what's going to come out of it either. Commissioner Haynes, you had a comment you want to make right then? Let you go ahead and speak.
I will say this, I thoroughly studied the whole plan, and, I totally agree with the plan, but I also understood that 2 of our commissioners need a little bit more time. So I'll say that I made the vote to give them that more time. It wasn't that I didn't understand it and that I didn't study it. I took tons of time for the last few days to study it, and even before then. But I do understand if they need a little bit more time, I would give them that more time. That's not I understand the outside look on it, and it's not and I don't want, anybody who played a part in this to feel like you haven't did a great job. I don't want that to come across to where I don't want to say a slap in the face, but at the same time, it kind of could be looked at that. So, I wanted to say, I felt like, if they wanted more time, I will make that decision to give them that, make the vote to give them that more time. And it's not that I didn't study and didn't understand it fully and didn't agree with it.
Did I give you any direction to make?
I think I'm good. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Haynes saying you are in good shape on it. You're giving the other two commissioners time to look into this. Okay, so I'm not sure that necessarily, that I would expect Commissioner Gardner or Commissioner Harris to reach out to you if they have any additional questions or comments from anyone that reaches them.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank
That's all I have during other
Thank you.
business tonight.
Thank you.
Will we have a closed session tonight?
There is no closed session recommended tonight.
Okay. Okay, town board member comments. Commissioner Gardner.
I don't think I have anything except I've got some work to do. I've already started my list right here.
Okay. Commissioner Harris.
No comment, Mr. Mayor, but thank the board for allowing this extended time for me to review this document. Thank you.
Commissioner Haynes. Chef Haynes.
Great time to run the quay. Next year, we're gonna definitely need a water hose at the finish line. For the people there, they totally understand what happened at the finish line, and we had to use a whole lot of water bottles to make sure our people were able to run across the finish line safely. I guess before our next town board meeting, manifest will be coming up June 18th and 19th. I think that 18th will be for middle school and high school students, some type of STEM program. And then on the 19th, it'll be manifest focused on, with a focus towards fathers, since it's right there at Father's Day. So we're excited about that. Definitely had a great time with town employee luncheon. Definitely, I heard a lot of reviews about these the string beans and everything that Chief Malden cooked as well. They was like, what did he put in that meat? What kind of meat did he put in everything? So it was definitely well seasoned. Definitely congratulations to Pam and Teresa for continuing your efforts even while having a very, very busy schedule. Also, I actually took a picture of our firefighters on Saturday while they were out doing the smoke detector and posted on Facebook while they were doing their smoke detector sweep. And, a lot of the citizens in the community were really thankful for them doing that because many of them, one, didn't know how to even work their smoke detectors, or two, didn't even know where the smoke detectors were, and three, they didn't even know how to change the batteries or whether they were hardwired or not hardwired. So thank you for that, the fire department, for that education. One last thing, I know it's a hot topic, and I'm just gonna say it, and this is just personally, I don't want, when we talk about Fuquay being inclusive, we also have to make sure that we don't make any community feel like they're unwanted in the town of Fuquay-Varina. And, it's a hot topic, especially coming from a Baptist minister. It's a very hot topic when it comes to talking about LGBTQIA plus community. But, I want to let you know that as citizens, as we represent everybody in the town of Fuquay-Varina, and we don't want you to feel like you are unwanted or feel like you're not needed in the community. I'll say this personally, I'm still learning, and I will admit that. It's one of those things, it's a learning curve. With many other things, as other communities continue to grow in our community. So, I don't mind having a conversation about it to be more enlightened, have more education on it, because that's something I just don't know. Some things I just don't know. But I don't want you to feel like you're not unwanted in the town of Fuquay-Varina, and that you're not needed in the town of Fuquay-Varina, and that you're overlooked in the town of Fuquay-Varina. So I just want to say that I know the Wake County, I was watching the Wake County commissioners meeting before we came in, and they actually made a proclamation, different things like that. I will say stuff takes time. It definitely takes time, but I don't want you to feel like you're not wanted in Fuquay-Varina. So I want to put that on record, letting people know, because some of our employees, many of our citizens, I have family members, friends who are part of that community. And I don't want them to feel like they're not wanted in the Fuquay-Varina. Those are all my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Haynes. Commissioner Watson.
Run the Quay was this past weekend. It was the 18th annual Run the Quay. I didn't realize that until they posted that we'd have that 18 years. It's also the 75th year for our Chamber of Commerce. So that was great. And I talked to Kate from the Chamber of Commerce, and she said they had over 1,000 participants. So it was a really well-attended race. I unfortunately was not able to attend as I was attending my 1-year-old niece's ballet recital, which was equally as entertaining as Run the Quay. I want to also congratulate all of our high school graduates that we have coming up this week, next week, on their graduation from our 2 high schools. We also have a special resident in town who was just recognized in, I think it was WRAL yesterday, who's going to be featured on the American Ninja Warrior, Lila Nathanson. And then tomorrow, hopefully you see you all out at 9 a.m. at Meridian at Broad for Coffee with a Cup. That is all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Watson. Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Yes, just real briefly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity to represent the town at the Rotary Club's Flags for Heroes on Memorial Day, or May 30th. A great event, a very moving event. One of our local Fuquay-Varina heroes, Scott Quilty, was the speaker, and I had the honor of getting to introduce him. And the neat thing was he shared with us information. He has made sacrifices himself as a member of our military, but he discussed 2 different types of cases and just really brought one of them to home. He obviously talked about a friend of his who was killed in action on a war zone, but he also talked about another friend who had been in action, seen fierce action, but survived with no injuries that were visible. But he came home and he too succumbed to his injuries because of mental and emotional issues that he had after he came home. And Scott wanted to bring that to bear for us to think about on Memorial Day, that there are many ways that our military members do die, and it's very sad. But just to hear him talk about it from a very close personal relationship, and that was very moving. It was a very good event. But it just brought back home there's a lot of ways people pay an ultimate price serving our country, and we need to remember that. On a lighter note, I do think the barbecue turkey was excellent there, Commissioner Haynes. I tried that, trying to be healthy, and it was very good. And congratulations to Pam and Teresa for your achievements. I really appreciate you just going out there and working on the training to better serve our citizens, better serve your town, and I appreciate it, and that's all I got.
Thank you. Pam, congratulations, just as Mayor Pro Tem Smith mentioned. Teresa, I want to recognize you also at, you are the fabric that holds together this board often, and and especially myself, helping me out with planning and events to go to and what I have to do, and helping me be prepared. So I appreciate what you do very much too. Congratulations to you too for your help that you do for me right there, and for the rest of this board too, and for those for the managers also, and everybody that you help out. But thank you very much. Run to Quay was this past weekend, and the substitute national anthem singer is one of our very own town employees that sung the national anthem there. Sung it at both 10K and 5K. Adam Stevenson works in utilities department, and he sings at my church also in the choir. And so it was great to see him there sing it, and did a great job singing that. And started off and sent everybody off at the race, and then and he was there too to sing it at the same time. So that was great. Did a great job. And so those of you that haven't heard him, make sure you hear him also. Ballantine Elementary School, we had a fundraiser there back in the spring, and that was a drawing and a raffle. And so I remember always when I was a little kid, a mayor came to visit me in elementary school and to our class and said, first one that read 50 books in the class got a $50 bill. And that was Alfred Johnson. That's how long ago this was, Mayor Alfred Johnson. And which shows my age, I guess. But Alfred Johnson was my mayor in elementary school. And I thought it was so cool that he had came and done that. And so I told elementary schools, I'd visit the different schools and read to them and do things. I said, I always tell that story. I said, anything I can do to help y'all, I'm happy to help y'all participate. And so what the PTA came up with as a fundraiser at their school was mayor ice cream with the mayor. And so they auctioned it off. So they come in, read a book, and bring ice cream for all the kids in the classroom. So I said, great, let's do it. So the kid won it. And this was at Ballantine Elementary School a couple weeks ago, or last week, actually. It was last week. And so then I said, why don't we go ahead and open it up to the entire grade? And so I had Pints come in and cater ice cream for the entire second grade at Ballantine Elementary School, and the teachers, and they loved it. And those kids, we read a book, it's Amelia Bedelia Becomes the Mayor, which is very comical the way it makes fun of the mayor in there. And so I was reading the book basically, so it was great, and the kids loved it, and I want y'all to know that, and that was good. And staff enjoyed it there too at the school, getting to participate and have ice cream too, and partaking in that. And got to support Pints at the same time here in our community, and they came and catered it with all the toppings and all the good stuff. And the kids didn't even know what to think with all the sugar that they ate right before they went home to see mom and dad.
Teachers love you.
And it was great. Really enjoyed that right there. I hope to see everybody in the morning time at Coffee with the Cop. Those are great attended events always. And as Commissioner Gardner mentioned, Dinner on Depot this Saturday. Hopefully every one of y'all have bought up tickets and supporting Dinner on Depot. And bring your wallets and checkbooks, because they're a fundraiser. They're raising money, right, Marilyn? You expect people to
We'll be,
to
we'll
bid and
be
do something
auctioning
to raise
off
some
those
money?
unplain air paintings.
So for a great turnout, look forward to seeing everybody there. We have no closed session, no further business. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Good night.